Good evening, everybody. I'm going to be doing something, if you've watched for a long time, you'll actually know that this is not my first time playing the game. But it's definitely been a long time since I've played this. So I have I'll actually confess. So I've got a little notepad in terms of some streaming ideas that I had. This was not on the main list of things I wanted to do. But I don't know. I was kind of feeling like it today, and I was thinking a bit about a couple of games that I was talking with Prosciutto Fist, and there were a couple of games, excuse me, that seemed like good ideas to do, but I decided that I wanted to. I didn't want to do them right away. And I had always intended to play this game again. In fact, I'm trying to think when I originally wanted to get back to this. This game was released in 2016, so it's almost 10 years old now, which is slightly insane to think about. But I don't know. Like, one of the things that's kind of funny about this is that I believe this did not do particularly well on release. I think the idea was that. This was a game by Obsidian. So for those of you who don't have the benefit of the tags for the stream, we're going to be playing Tyranny tonight. So I believe the idea here is that this was Obsidian's sort of follow-up to Pillars of Eternity. It was published by Paradox, and I think Pillars of Eternity had wound up being unexpectedly successful, and was sort of this whole idea of like, oh, the old school isometric CRPG is back. And it very much wasn't, at least in the sense that some people, at least in what some people had thought. So I think the idea here now, I want to maybe moderate a little bit about what was going on with Tyranny. I believe the one bit of sort of insider information that got out in terms of, I think, like an interview or something like that. I'm pretty sure it was with Shamster Johnny, I think is the name. He was at Paradox at the time, where the idea was that the game sort of underperformed, but long term they weren't expecting to lose any money on it. But what I thought was kind of interesting, so I've always had a mixed relationship with these kinds of games. I've played a bit of Baldur's Gate, and I've definitely found it quite challenging to start at level 1 because, of course, so many of the encounters are very lethal in that case. And so what I found was it was a little difficult to do exploration in that situation because, I might just run into a bear that kills me. So I've never played Baldur's Gate all the way through. And in fact, there's sort of this golden age of CRPGs that really, really do seem to have just a special place in people's hearts. So I know some people who really just think Baldur's Gate is just peak gaming. Like, for them, that is really such a major influence on them and a really strong memory that they have. People have spoken very highly of the Fallout series, which I think would count. And after Baldur's Gate, I think there were these weren't necessarily by BioWare, but I believe there were some follow-ups like Icewind Dale and Neverwinter Nights that maybe were a little more combat-oriented. And then, of course, from that period, there's Baldur's Gate 2, of course, which is a much-loved game. But I think the one that really gets people's attention is Planescape Torment. And that really does seem to be one that planted a flag and people still hold as a really significant CRPG. So, but then these things kind of seem to go away for a while. It's not that they were permanently gone. So I think Dragon's Age seemed to go quite well, and the Knights of the Old Republic games, obviously very dominant through BioWare. But I think it's fair to say there's a certain point at which these games look quite different from what was originally what people remember, maybe what people are feeling nostalgic about. And so that seems to be where Obsidian, who I believe has a bunch of ex-Interplay people on it. I'm not again, I'm not super familiar. I'm familiar enough, but I definitely don't have sort of that encyclopedic understanding of the genre that might be nice to do to have when doing a summary like this. But they came out with Pillars of Eternity. There was a Kickstarter for it, and it did exceptionally well. And it also seems like the base, like Pillars of Eternity, sold incredibly well. So there's this big idea that it's the return of the CRPG, except that there was a very, very successful game, and there really weren't, like, there wasn't much indication after that there was this huge demand for that type of experience. So, Tyranny seemed to do, again, okay, but below expectations, maybe would be the charitable way of putting it, which I think is kind of funny because I have struggled to kind of stay with, this will be the reference to the character in Tyranny, Vanguard Master. Also welcome. But yeah, so you take the first data point, which is Pillars of Eternity. You take the second data point, Tyranny, which says, maybe this was a one-off, maybe this was something that didn't, maybe there was an implementation error. So some people seem to say that the ending to this isn't very good, which, I haven't gotten to, so I wouldn't be able to comment. But I can see, you can see how with a second data point, right, there could maybe be some specific things, like maybe Pillars of Eternity was uniquely good or Tyranny was, uniquely bad, neither of which I think are true. But it could be less of a statement about the genre and more about the specifics of the game that did or didn't do well. But then it seems that Obsidian went off with another publisher. I think it was Versus Evil. I know they're not a going concern anymore, so I can't recall. I think it was Versus Evil. Anyways, Pillars of Eternity 2 apparently did exceptionally poorly. In fact, I don't know the specific details, but I wouldn't be surprised if because that was the one, I'm trying to remember I think it's Fig. There was this platform where people, you would not just kickstart a game, you'd basically buy an ownership share in a game. I've always felt really nervous about this just based off of how Kickstarters turned out. So like in some cases, you can, in some cases you can say, maybe this is worth it, maybe not. But I really don't know what your recourse is if the project's mismanaged. And, Phoenix Point was financed that way. And that actually gave the backers a very healthy return. But the big problem I've had with that is that very often the projections that they'll give for the related games are not the most realistic, in my opinion. And this is one of the challenges, right, is that when it's not just that you back a game, it's a question in terms of like, what are you giving up for a certain ownership share? So like in the case of Pillars of Eternity 2, I'm pretty sure whatever your investment was in that went to zero. And I don't think a lot of people were expecting that. On the other hand, again, a Phoenix Point did probably better than expected, if nothing else because of the Epic money that they got. And so that was, probably something that people hadn't originally counted on in terms of that financial decision. And so in a lot of cases, the question about an investment is, do you, like, it's not just a question in terms of the thing that you're buying, but it's the price that you're buying it at. So I think it would be fair to say if you are buying a company like Cisco, that's probably a pretty good investment, all told, right? If you have ownership in a major provider of networking hardware, that seems to be a fairly important part of the economy today. If you buy Cisco, just before the dot-com bubble bursts, there is absolutely no way that it was ever going to meet those expectations. And so you can buy a very good company at an insane price and do quite poorly. And then, you have someone like Warren Buffett who buys, a textile mill, which never really was turned around as a textile mill, but ultimately becomes this investment vehicle for all of his insurance and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think it's a neat idea, but it's definitely, I think it's definitely one where, I'm not entirely sure the people participating quite understand what they're getting. And I don't necessarily feel that those platforms always have the right incentive to be as upfront about how all of it works. Like, I'm not saying they have to scare people off, but I do think that personally, I would like to see other information and maybe a slightly different structure for that sort of setup. Anyways, I know this is going on a really long time, but I remember distinctly seeing Pillars of Eternity. I'm pretty sure, at least, it was Pillars of Eternity 2 that was funded that way. And I definitely remember having the feeling that the sales projections were very optimistic and feeling not so sure that it was even like the idea of making a Pillars of Eternity 2 was all that good of an idea in light of the fact that it was very hard to show that the base game was anything other than sort of this one-off pent-up demand being satisfied, as opposed to sort of the renaissance of the CRPG genre. Because, of course, the bigger story would be things like Larian with Divinity Original Sin and Divinity Original Sin 2, and then, of course, the big one, Baldur's Gate 3. And, of course, Baldur's Gate 3 is a very different game from all of these CRPGs. And, I think the success of those games indicate that while there may be some demand for the old style CRPG, and I would be sad to see if the genre sort of went away, it would be fair to say that the kind of rose-colored glasses for the original forms of these games maybe had been removed. And then, of course, this leads to the last of the really big ones, and that's Disco Elysium, which I think probably gets compared in some ways to something like Planescape Torment a lot, because it really just seemed to indicate to a lot of people that, you're allowed to do just completely different things. And that sounds weird to say because, of course, they're games. Of course, you're allowed to do that. But, Disco Elysium, I think, came out. Actually, let me just see when Disco Elysium came out. I'm pretty sure it came out around this time where there would be some genuine questions about the viability of CRPGs. Let's see here, Disco Elysium, 2019 video game. Yeah, so I don't know. It's actually kind of hard for me to see how you would take a game like Disco Elysium, look at the track record of the genre prior to that, and say, this is viable. This is definitely where you want to put your investing dollar. But it did great. It did something really original, and people rewarded it for it. So all of this is to say is it's clearly an old and a very diverse genre. I actually tried to, because people love chatbots so much, they've told me, I wanted to see if it could come up with any interesting CRPG ideas for me, just in terms of ones to play. And they're all not very impressive, to be honest. But I ultimately decided that Tyranny was something that I really wanted to get back to. It's, I think, not a bad way to sort of ease myself back in. It's modern enough that I get all the benefits of, user interfaces and such. It's made in Unity, but it's not so far off the systems that people seem to love about the original isometric CRPGs that they it's going to be unfamiliar for me to go back to maybe one of those older ones. And more importantly, it's a game that, I don't know, I don't hear a lot of people talk about Tyranny that much. And I remember at least liking the bit that I played of this. So if nothing else, this is a chance for us to engage with something that maybe is a bit underrated. Sorry, I think I've been fraying my my headphones a bit. Right. Okay, new game. So, the story mode difficulty setting requires minimal micromanagement and easily forgives mistakes in combat. Enemies receive a penalty to most stats. Companion combat AI is enabled by default, and party members do not receive wounds until they are knocked out. Normal difficulty requires strategy and efficiency, but forgives a few mistakes in combat. Companion combat AI is enabled by default. The hard difficulty is suited for veteran players of isometric RPGs such as Pillars of Eternity, who are looking for a challenge. Survival requires micromanagement and optimization of stats through items, spells, and abilities. Enemy AI is more efficient, and uses abilities more frequently. And in Path of the Damned difficulty, enemies receive a bonus to most stats, have the most efficient AI, and will very frequently use abilities. Party members take more wounds during combat and when being knocked out. This difficulty level can only be chosen when starting a new game. Expert mode. Expert mode disables a number of helper features in the game. Players who want to rely on their own faculties and intuition while playing the game should play Expert mode. This option is selected when you start a new game. It cannot be enabled in-game, and if disabled, cannot be re-enabled in that game. Trial of Iron. If Trial of Iron is enabled, only one save slot is permitted. If your party is defeated, the game ends, your save is lost, and you must start again. Recommended only for those who seek a greater challenge. This can only be modified when starting a new game, and New Game Plus allows you to import your character from a previous save into a new game. Only saves after game completion are eligible to be imported. So I think I'm quite happy to stick with the normal difficulty here. The lore skill can be used to impress characters and conversate. Never mind.
For over 400 years, the armies of Kairos the Overlord have swept across the known world. All who stood against them fell before their might. Even the Archons, women and men of immense power, were forced to kneel, chained to the Overlord's will. Now Kairos' final conquest has come to our corner of the world, and two of the Overlord's armies compete for the honor of taking our lands. The elite disfavored, and the teeming horde of the Scarlet Chorus. The voices of Nerat, spymaster and Archon of secrets, guides the fierce and undisciplined masses of the Scarlet Chorus. With each battle, the Scarlet Chorus grows stronger, as the defeated are given a simple choice: serve or die. Graven Ash, Archon of War and the Overlord's most loyal general, leads the disfavored. Though small in number, Kairos' ironclad legion has never met true defeat in open battle. Watching over the two generals is Tunon, the Adjudicator, Archon of Justice, eldest of Kairos' minions. Tunon brings Kairos' laws to newly conquered lands, aided by the Fatebinders, judges and executioners of the Overlord's laws. You are among the youngest of the court of Fatebinders, when Kairos' armies came to our lands. How could we have known that the fate of thousands would rest in your hands?
All right. Role in the Northern Empire where you were born. Men enjoy equal protections under the laws of the Overlord Kairos. In the southern lands of the Tiers, only men may own or captain ships, but real estate is restricted to women. Men may lease, but durable ownership of the land in the Tiers always passes to eldest daughters or sister. Most sons enter their father's profession by their mid-teens. Those without a profession or family lands to work can find purpose by pledging service to one of the Overlord's mighty archons. Criminals, derelicts, and others are often conscripted into the armies of the archons. If a child cannot forge his own skein, he will certainly find one in battle. So he can be a man or a milady, and we can go for one of 3 body types. I'll go for the defaults here. Alright, so I guess we need to choose... This is the part that takes forever for me. Because the funny thing here is that I'd kind of like a little bit more about the... more of an idea of who this character is before I pick things like portraits and all of that. So let's go for a portrait first. And then we'll build around the portrait. Oddly enough, I wasn't planning on playing a lady, but this actually works pretty well. I was definitely thinking something along these lines. I just didn't really want the bloody shield. Alright, I think this will have to do. And again, I don't need to go exactly for this. I'm really looking for sort of an archetype side. Long hair. He looks like a girl. There we go. We're getting started with Disco Elysium.
Got it. I'm injured, tired. Let's rest.
Found something. Trouble is afoot.
Flawless! You learn something every day.
This will be fun. That wasn't so hard.
On the lookout. We must rest soon. Yes. Interesting. Heads up, we have company.
Good work.
All right. Tattoos. Would the bringer of laws have tattoos? Who's to say? This actually isn't a terrible one. I was hoping maybe for something that wouldn't completely... something that could maybe be covered by the armor. No tattoos. Alright. Today you are a Fatebinder, agent of the Archon of Justice. You are by no means free, but as a warrior scholar deputized with discretionary powers to interpret and execute the laws of the Overlord Kairos, you are freer than most. One does not apply to be a Fatebinder. One is called by Tunon, the Archon of Justice, and to decline is death. Millions of men and women live in the dozens of realms ruled by the Overlord. How did you stand out from among this teeming mass of desperation and insignificance and gain the Archon's notice? Incidentally, it does tell us who these people are. So there's Tunon the Adjudicator is the Archon of Justice, ruler of the conquered realms and arbiter of disputes. Oldest of the Archons sent to conquer the Tiers, Tunon speaks with Kairos' authority. His true appearance remains hidden behind an iron mask, the face of judgment. Tunon is an impartial, sober creature, wholly obsessed with justice. Where is it? Justice and order. Though assumed to be a powerful combatant, Tunon rarely strays from his throne room, entrusting his court of Fatebinders to act as his eyes and ears, as well as judges, juries, and executioners. I'm also a little worried that the game may be overwhelming me, but... Alright. Our options. Pitfighter, not wishing to pay to feed and house. 2. The madam that purchased your mother sold you to the Proving Grounds, the Northern Empire's bloodiest, most notorious fighting arena. Given only enough training to assure the show isn't over too soon, your natural prowess and survival instinct led you to one victory after another. There was no elegant swordplay, no formalized duels, just brutal melee and the stench of blood, shit, and bronze with each day's gruesome necessities. It is said that any fighter that slays a dozen others in the Grand Melee is given her freedom, but in 300 years, only 3 warriors have ever walked away from the Proving Grounds. With the closing horn sounded and 13 corpses lay about your feet, you became the 4th to be granted freedom to thunderous applause. But this autonomy was short-lived. Within days, word of your accomplishment made its way to the Archon of Justice. I'm just gonna... I don't really have a way of changing the settings in character creation, so I think we'll just have to push through it. Hunter, when the leader of your home village spoke out of turn one time too many, agents of the Overlord put the whole town to the torch to contain the spread of insubordination. The bounding Viper tribe came across the smoking ruins of your village, and when the beast's matriarch found you frozen but unafraid, the mighty leader took you in and raised you with the protection of her tribe. For years you lived with these wild beastmen in their migratory homes throughout the mountains, but the bounding Vipers were a dying breed. Each long winter took a greater toll than the last, and once the dwindling tribe was too weak to defend its lands, disfavored soldiers came to dispense of the ravenous scavengers your tribe had become. Finding a human amongst the wild tribe, the disfavored soldiers made a point of taking you alive. News of the wild child of the north eventually spread to the Archon of Justice, and he ordered you released from captivity and delivered unto his court. Guild Apprentice, deeply proud of your intelligence, your parents always knew you were too smart for a life spent with your hands in the soil. Looking to secure a better future, your parents struck a bargain with the Seven Tree Guild, a small magical order willing to teach you letters, numbers, and magic if you proved capable. For several years, you learned much from the mages, mastering reading and writing faster than the rest, and eventually learned the basics of mystic theory and spellcraft. Your magical studies came to an abrupt halt when the voices of Narat, Archon of Secrets, deemed the guild's a peacetime distraction that must be disbanded for the upcoming war, its mages assigned to proper armies. While your peers went on to other guilds, your mind was seen as too valuable to be wasted on the armies, and instead your life was claimed by Tunon, Archon of Justice. Noble Scion, Born to noble parents, you were groomed for leadership, your youth spent on letters, history, rhetoric, and other matters of culture and statecraft. Though you had wealth and creature comforts, you were expected to grow up quickly and bear the honor of shepherding others through prosperity and war. When your parents came under accusation of sedition, you were sent to the court of Tunon, Archon of Justice, to defend your family's actions. Your parents were found guilty, their sentence the dissolution of the treasonous estate. Eloquently pleading your own ignorance of your family's actions, you negotiated your most important deal yet, immunity from the crimes of your family for the simple cost of swearing fealty to the Archon himself. Despite the unwilling induction, your education and savvy made you a valuable addition to the Archon's cadre of enforcers, and so long as you remain in good standing, your family might just be allowed to live. Soldier. Unable to settle the year's accounts with grain, your parents offered you as a tithe to the Overlord instead. Seeing your first battles as a child, you've known all your life how to fight, how to stay calm at the sight of blood and disembowelment, and how to rely on your fellow warriors. Deemed smarter than the average killer, you were groomed for command and given an education in letters and numbers. With rumors of war, it seemed recruitment into the disfavored legion would be the obvious match for your skills, but the Archon of Justice is known to say that good iron is not used for swords, and good minds are not used for soldiers. Claimed by Tunon, you were instead drifted into the Court of Fatebinders, where your martial skills were put to use in the enforcement of Kairos' laws. Lawbreaker. Accused of a crime you most certainly did commit, you stood before Tunon the Adjudicator, Archon of Justice, and argued your case with eloquence and conviction. Impressed by your logic, reason, and confidence, he found you guilty anyway. It is rumored that Tunon selects many of his agents from his prisoners. Who better to catch the wicked than those versed in such ways? In his mercy, Tunon offered you the choice of two sentences: decades languishing in prison, or a lifetime serving him in the Court of Fatebinders. The choice was an easy one, and instead of seeing the inside of a cell, you were trained in letters and numbers, magic, and war. The laws you once broke are now yours to interpret and enforce. War Mage. You have the combination of wits and courage to be accomplished casters and warriors. Few have the combination of wits and courage to be accomplished casters and warriors, and those cursed with such combination of talents are invariably pulled from their mundane lives and assigned to the armies of the Archons. Your earliest memories are a painful slog of training, study, lecture, and exhaustion, all the elements of being groomed for battle. You knew better than to ask what became of your family, nor to question the missives allegedly penned by their hand that were part of your earliest lessons in reading. When you reached adulthood, Tunon the Adjudicator came to the barracks and laid claim to your life. Seeing you as too valuable for the crucible of battle, the Archon of Justice deemed your life better spent dedicated to the art of punitive legal remedies. Though you had much to learn in matters of civil discourse, none could deny your bright future as Tunon's next great enforcer. And finally, Diplomat. Though they would never tell you why, Kairos bestowed great wealth upon your family for some unmentioned service, and your parents used this wealth to have you raised far from home. Your childhood was no nomadic tour of Terratus, with hired tutors and fleeting friendships. While others had stability and routine, you had a worldly and varied education. A careless word in a far-flung city landed you in legal trouble, and you were taken before Tunon the Adjudicator and made to stand trial. Not only did you plead your innocence, but you turned the accusations around on the accuser for wasting the court's time, and the Archon of Justice concurred. Amused by your wit, wisdom, and adaptability, Tunon claimed you as his newest enforcer. So I think I like the idea of the Noble Scion or the Diplomat, and I'm not sure which of these two I want to go for. I think I'm going to go for the Diplomat, because I really do like the idea of turning the tables. Primary expertise. As one of Tunon's Fatebinders, you receive training in the arts of war, the intrigue of magic, and the inexhaustible depths of Kairos' law across the Northern Empire. The education of a Fatebinder is second to none. Those bearing the title are expected to read instructions and understand the economies of the realms in which they operate. Literacy and mathematics, skills rarely found on Terratus, are essential skills for the execution of law. Subtler talents like speechcraft or tactics are honed with time and experience under Tunon's guidance. So you were trained in the following combat style: sword and shield, greatsword, short bow, shock spells, vigor spells, javelin, dual wielding, unarmed attacks, frost spells, or atrophy spells. So I think I'd probably go for one of the two one of the two weapons. So sword and shield is kind of appealing because it implies self-reliance, and then greatsword is just a big damage dealer, but potentially at the risk of a lack of defense. I think I'll go for... the greatsword. Wielding two-handed weapons puts your focus on power rather than speed. This is a slow attack style, but the damage you deal will often overcome the armor of your enemies. So we can sunder, so 17 to 23 slash pierce versus parry. Deliver a powerful overhead attack that reduces the target's armor. Or a sweeping cone attack that hits multiple nearby enemies. No, let's focus on maximum damage on one target. And then the second style, I feel that we need at least some kind of magic here. So I think so. Shock. I think these should all be roughly the same. So 2, 1, 5. Okay, so shock spells. Mages skilled in shock magic can frequently interrupt their enemies, preventing them from executing their attacks. Vigor spells. School of Vigor is a utility branch of magic that focuses on granting bonuses to yourself and your allies. Frost spells. Frost magic is an offensive school that focuses on slowing enemies as well as dealing cold damage. And atrophy spells. Atrophy magic drains the skills and attributes of your enemies, weakening their attacks and making them easier to kill. So lower might and vitality. Frozen. I think I like the idea of frost. It would probably be frost or atrophy, but in this case we'll go for frost spells. All right. So not a bad banner for my sword wielder. Slightly better. This one's kind of a neat one because it's very pen looking. I don't think I need to mess with the colors that much. I actually kind of like how this looks on its own. What about my character? You know what? I'm okay with the default colors, I think. Could change the pants maybe, but I don't think I need to. Oh, hell, I didn't even think of a name here. As much as I love to be sarcastic and come up with a name like Justice or something, I should probably... Draco might be kind of interesting. I think I will go for Solon. Okay, so this is one thing that I like. I kind of like about this game. So this attribute is recommended because of your training in Greatsword. recommended because of your training in frost spells, and strongly recommended because of your training in greatsword and frost spells. So it does sort of give you some indicators in terms of where you want to be putting your points. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I could put 1 in everything, but let's find out what this does. So might determines the physical strength of a character. Increased might leads to more powerful attacks and stronger abilities, as well as increasing endurance defense. The finesse attribute describes a character's physical and mental precision. Finesse is used to determine accuracy of attacks, spells, as well as increasing the worn armor's chances to reduce a hit type. Quickness determines how often a character can use their abilities and spells in combat, reducing cooldown durations. Vitality determines a character's physical health and their strength of personality. It also increases their will defense. The Wits attribute describes a character's mental acuity, their ability to observe their environment and pick up on clues. Wits is used to increase spell strength as well as increase the magic defense. And Resolve determines a character's ability to endure physical and mental challenges. Resolve is the primary attribute used to derive the endurance, will, and magic defenses. It also increases the durations of afflictions applied to the character. So this is actually kind of interesting. I don't think I would actually want to put this up any higher than the other ones. I did, yes. It's also on the screen here. Actually, oh god. Alright, Magic Staff determines the effectiveness of attacks using a magical staff. Higher skill values lead to more accurate attacks, increasing the chance of critical strikes. The accuracy of magical attacks is determined by both the Magic Staff skill and the magic skill used by the equipped staff. Two-handed weapons determines the effectiveness of attacks using large weapons wielded in both hands. Great swords, warhammers, and axes. The higher skill values lead to more accurate attacks, increasing the chance of critical strikes. So we won't put anything into the weapon skills. Control Frost determines the character's ability to evoke and control spells that use the sigil of Frost. Higher skill values increase the chance of hits and crits. Then support skills. Athletics determines a character's ability to traverse difficult terrain as well as their ability to execute complicated moves in combat. Athletics is also used in dialogue to determine your ability to intimidate or physically overpower someone. Lore determines a character's ability to decipher information and put together clues from fragments of information. This skill is crucial for magic users who wish to learn new runes of power to power their spells. Lore is also used in dialogue to determine what you know about the history of the world or to impress others with your intelligence. And Parry defends against melee attacks and spells. Higher skill ranks will reduce damage from enemy attacks and may lead them to miss altogether. Subterfuge and dodge. I mean, I'm tempted for subterfuge, but I've already went a little wide on my some of my previous choices here. So all right, I've got 5 more points to allocate. How do you want to continue? Selecting the Conquest option will allow you to play through Kairos' Conquest of the Tears, choosing how your character was involved in the invasion. This gives you the most control over the starting state of the game and how other factions will react to your character. So I actually think this is a really cool way of starting the game. If you can just bear with me one quick second here. I think I just got a message. Yeah, we're going to do it. Actually, I'm going to just take a second here. All right, here we go.
All the world has fallen to Kairos, and now the Overlord's eye is on the Tears, our home. The last corner of the world free of Kairos' reign. 2 armies, the Disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus, march south from the Northern Empire, the last realm to fall to Kairos a century prior. In the early days of 428, Kairos' armies arrive at the Gates of Judgment, the mountainous border that we Tearsmen so long believed unassailable. Unable to agree on a unified plan of defense, the various leaders of the Tears sit and wait for each other to deal with the conquerors, until it's too late.
Conquest. During the Conquest, you will decide your character's actions during Kairos' invasion of the Tears, shaping the world through which you will adventure over the course of the game. Each choice you make affects your character and how major factions of the Tears respond to you. Your decisions matter. Choose wisely. 428, Year 1 of Kairos' Conquest. The Bastard City. The Bastard City stood on the northern border between Kairos' empire and the Tears. Built upon a natural harbor at the crossroads between realms, the city was a nexus of commerce. To the Tears, it was the center of all wealth. To a northerner, it was little more than a backwater trading post. Its symbolic status as a gateway to the continent made it a natural first target in Kairos' military conquest. Circumstances were ideal for you to prove your worth as a soldier in Kairos' armies. Taking this city would send a message to the rest of the Tears. Kairos' will is insurmountable. I'll do a little read on the Bastard City. Named for its position between 2 realms, the Northern Empire and the Southern Tears, the Bastard City and its surrounding lands, known as the Bastard Tier, is a melting pot of cultures and a place of commerce and intrigue. The Tearsmen of the South view the Bastard City as a place of wealth and excess, but to the people of the Northern Empire, the Bastard City is little more than a sprawling slum. Tunon the Adjudicator established his court in the Bastard City. From this foothold in the Tears, he and his court of Fatebinders impose Kairos' laws upon the conquered land. Select a token on the map to begin. So infiltrate the Tears. Both armies sent forces to prepare the way. Or Gates of Judgment. In the first major engagement of the war, Kairos' armies cross the mountains and establish a foothold. Infiltration sounds kind of cool. So, infiltrate the Tears. History would remember the Gates of Judgment as the first battle of the conquest, but the real combat unfolded with advance units of both armies preparing for the coming war. The Disfavored and Scarlet Chorus each had a plan to infiltrate the capital city. Which army did you join? Why does everybody keep saying this? This is about you. This is a game where you play a bureaucrat. Good to see you, Ellen Ripley. All right, so we have... You lent your skills to the elite Disfavored scouts to capture a border garrison. Graven Ash insisted that an early victory in the offensive would boost the morale of his troops and diminish the haughty overconfidence of the Southerners. Or... You joined the Scarlet Chorus as they raided villages and small towns, conscripting every able-bodied man and woman into the army. The voices of Nerat emphasized the rewards of conscription and enslavement over wanton bloodshed. Apparently his soldiers needed the reminder. The other option we have would be the Gates of Judgment. The armies of Kairos took the battle to the Gates of Judgment, trumpeting the opening call of the conquest of the Tears. The 2 armies, the Disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus, brought their distinctive sense of order and chaos to the assault. You went to battle alongside the army whose approach best suited your strengths. Yeah, so I've never actually played all that far through it, Erasmus, but I'm similar to you. So the setting, I think, is really interesting, and I particularly like this idea of character creation. I think there's something just very interesting about building a character through your actions as opposed to just adjusting a bunch of stats. Oh, thank you, Ellen Ripley. I should probably... Let me know if this is going to be a problem, but I'll wait till the arc is finished opening. I feel like I should mention. So I'll have a few. I'll have a few weeks of content, but I'll maybe just let people know, and I'm going to do occasional reminders of this. I am going to be out of the country for the better part of August. Now, I can probably try. I can probably try to do some like live streaming where I am. No promises, but there's at least sort of a possibility of making that happen. Just because I'll have my phone with me. But any like video gaming, anything like sitting down at a computer and getting the gaming done. Once I leave, I'm basically not going to be able to do any of that until September. And then YouTube, I'll just try and do some videos ahead of time, but it's like I'll be gone long enough that it is actually going to be a bit of a challenge to make all of that work. So one unfortunate feature about Twitch subscriptions are that they are purely forward-looking. So anybody who subscribes now, I could just pack up and like walk away from the stream, and there's not a whole lot of recourse to people to handle that. Now, I'm not quitting streaming. I will be back. I realize I've been inconsistent with the stream times, but the reason why there will be a breakup to the usual streaming pattern is just I will not physically be able to do them at my usual times. But I figure I'm at a point here where I want to both state the plan that I will not be streaming for a while in August. And, yes, the hilarious joke. Say the opposite thing of what the streamer is saying. Laugh, everyone, laugh. It never gets old. But basically, the idea here is like I want to be as clear as I can to people who are subbing to the channel. I will do my best to try and do something, and I've already been pretty inconsistent in terms of the streaming, but like I am gonna kind of have to face the reality that like I'm not going far from where I live so that I can do like inconvenient streams in distant places. So long as I hurry back in September. Yes, no, I do want to try. I have no idea how I'm going to get so... I have no idea how I'm going to get the consistency in the schedule back, but where I can, I wanted to... I did want to try and... I wanted to try and sort of flag to people, particularly if you're on the margin about subbing. I wanted to try as much as I can to communicate to people that the sub will be less used than it normally would. All right, Gates of Judgment again. So, standing shield to shield with Kairos' ironclad elite, you advanced on the mercenary army purchased by the nobles of the Bastard City. The Legion wanted to send a message to the tiers that superior breeding and disciplined training would win the day. Or you rushed with the chaotic mass of the Scarlet Chorus, flanked the Bastard City's army, and drove them to flee. So I actually kind of prefer the flanking in terms of the Scarlet Chorus at the Gates of Judgment, but I definitely prefer the infiltration more than the others. So you lent your skills to the elite disfavored scouts to capture a border garrison. Graven Ash insisted that early victory in the offensive would boost the morale of his troops and diminish the haughty overconfidence of the Southerners. The Oathbound scouts identified a modest border defense and collaborated on an organized attack that would leave the enemy uncoordinated and cut off from aid. You oversaw the preparations and offered your opinions on the strategy. When the clashing of swords and spears fell to silence, followed by the cheering of disfavored scouts, you were the least surprised. Containing the fire, your fiercest opponents in the Bastard City were the mages of the School of Wild Wrath. Too barbaric to use their power responsibly, the unbridled practitioners needed to be stopped. How did you trick the hot-tempered mages into their own undoing? You lured the hot-headed mages to an ambush where a legion of disfavored waited to spring the trap. The soldiers were hungry for a chance to subdue the arcane branch of Tyr's resistance, or you tricked the guild elders into meeting the voices of Narat, Archon of Secrets. The Archon was notorious for his cruel and mysterious interrogation techniques. The mages were never seen again. And Inside Agent, with the border garrison captured by your disfavored allies, you traveled ahead of Kairos' armies and lurked in the shadows of the Bastard City. You decided that converting one of the locals to Kairos' side would help bring the city to its knees. After all, corruption starts from within. So that definitely seems in line with my interests. So you enlisted a bitter captain of the guard to sell military secrets to the disfavored. Better that Kairos' forces march to their next inevitable victory well informed, or you came to an arrangement with a well-connected smuggler who knew how to sneak agents of the Scarlet Chorus behind the city walls. The Scarlet Chorus were better operatives than soldiers, and this work required a subtle touch. After accepting his deserved payment, the smuggler uncovered a long-forgotten tunnel that intersected with the sewers of the Bastard City. Armed with maps of the subterranean layout, your Scarlet Chorus allies fanned out to occupy various city districts under cover. They spent the ensuing weeks murdering key officials and sabotaging defenses wherever possible, weakening the Tyr's capital under the very noses of its leaders. Betrayal of the Bastard City. Your tactics of infiltration placed you in the Bastard City ahead of the main armies. Your work softened the key defenses for the arrival of Kairos' forces, but you wanted a decisive gesture. How would you give your allies a meaningful advantage? How would you assist in the fall of the Bastard City? Duel the City Marshal. You challenged the commander of the Bastard City's defenses to an honorable fight to the death. The disfavored wished to spare soldier lives for the battle ahead and civilian lives for the occupation. So if I do that, I get Warrior's Respite, 1 per encounter, minus 50% damage for 12 seconds, plus 15% health every 3 seconds for 12 seconds. Stand your ground in the face of defeat. During this time, you'll regenerate health rapidly, but your damage is significantly reduced. Spreading the word of Kairos, you converted the poor and disaffected into a hidden army of the Scarlet Chorus. Once the dust settled, the army wished to bolster their troops with these sleeper cells. Searing Palm. Gather heated energy into your hands and release it unto a foe. The target ignites in flames, burning over time. Definitely like that as an ability. And spread fear through assassination. Keeping to the shadows, you eliminated the leaders of the Bastard City one by one. Concealing shadows, 1 per encounter. Create a cloud of obscuring shadows and dust. For a short duration, enemies that use physical attacks against you leave a significantly increased chance to miss. During this time, your attacks will be less effective. I think I will actually go for... I'm going more with the... I'm inciting a riot rather than dueling the City Marshal. But I do like the idea of being a bit more aggressive in terms of attacks, so... It didn't take much to convince the Bastard City's downtrodden that Kairos was the superior power. You armed them with weapons and knowledge of a signal that you would raise when the time was right. As the armies appeared outside the walls, you ignited the spark that fanned their anger into a full-scale riot. The chaos they spread in Kairos' name weakened the city to such an extent that its inevitable fall was but a formality. Hello, Prosciutto Fist! So, folks, I will just take a quick minute here and speak to the qualities of the long-suffering Prosciutto Fist. Sorry, I had to send a message. But anyways, Prosciutto Fist has actually really jumped... Yeah, what the hell am I doing? But no, I've really enjoyed. So Prosciutto Fist is someone who I've seen a few people do Hades before, but Pro really seems to have a particular love for that game, which is quite infectious. I was debating on actually playing that today, but she's been doing. It's Lost in Random, but I can't remember the subtitle for it. Let me see if I can find it here. The Eternal Die. It's very much like Hades. It's by the same people who did Lost in Random, but Pro has really latched onto that game. It's actually quite a delight. Now she'll do a few different things. So she has done some crochet on stream. She's done some history streams. She used to actually do some sort of essays and sort of research. But I know there was sort of a mixed reception to those, so it wasn't always wasn't always a consistent audience, which is a shame because I thought she did those quite well. But anyways, I've had a lot of fun hanging out in Prosciutto Fist's channel, if nothing else, just to make her wonder why she ever wants to make a living doing the whole streamer thing. But as a long-suffering broadcaster who is a lot of fun to hang out with, I know Pro is a pro at it, has a very memorable name. I originally found through Book of Hours, and the one drawback is actually on the note of CRPGs, I did gift her Disco Elysium, mostly because she did a great job with Baldur's Gate 3, and then the one thing that I didn't realize was she's not super comfortable talking for extended times on stream, like in terms of game or reading in terms of gameplay. So of course I originally found her through Book of Hours, which is almost entirely reading on stream, and then of course Disco Elysium has such a such a huge reading component as well, and for the Gen Zers who only know the TikTok and the hieroglyphics, it's a challenge, and I appreciate it. So I've since come to learn that Pro is much better at these dice rolling games. And by the way, for those of you who will not have the benefit of seeing the chat, it's specifically because she provoked me with the Bro said I can't read. But anyways, no. Prosciutto Fist is a streamer I really enjoy hanging out with. I think he's got a much more consistent stream than I do. She does actually have she has this nice, quick wit, and she definitely has quite a good camera presence. I felt a little bad. I think I may have come off the wrong way when I said that she's very expressive. I mean that in a positive way. But I'm worried a little bit that it's not taken that way because I'm also an ass in her stream. So I do mean it in a complimentary way. But needless to say, she's got a very good camera presence, and she definitely plays some interesting games, ones that I definitely would like to play myself, having seen her play it, which I often think is a very good reason to follow a stream. So for those of you that have not been checking out her channel, definitely do so, either clicking her name and clicking follow, or using the antiquated command that I have done here. It just gets you in trouble sometimes. Indeed. All right. But yeah, so I wanted to highlight to you, Pro, because I know like you did Baldur's Gate 3, which is obviously very different from these more classic style CRPGs, but this one's kind of neat in the sense that one of the ways that we're building our characters, so we had sort of the appearance, the history, so on and so forth. The game was set up that there is a tyrannical overlord named Kairos that has essentially conquered the world except for this final part, and then this conquest is sort of the final conquest of Kairos' empire, and we are playing an agent, a fate binder of Tunon the Adjudicator, one of the servants of the tyrannical overlord. So, I mean, as far as a premise is concerned, right, it's like evil has triumphed, the war is over, there's no resistance of any sort of meaning, and you are the government agent. So, right, if you're, I think probably most people see the Roman Empire as aspirational. I think most people probably experience the Roman Empire as conquerors. And so in this case here, you're those, hated agents who are, yeah, it absolutely does track for me. You're these hated agents of oppression as opposed to, but of course you're playing a video game, so that's awesome, right? But what I like about this idea is that we're doing sort of the final 4 years of this world conquest, the world of Terratus, and the last bit of character creation. I think what's interesting about this is that you are making a character through actions as opposed to, just sort of sitting down and manipulating a bunch of stats. So anyways, we just presumably finished the first item, the betrayal of the Bastard City. We'll read this out again. It didn't take much to convince the Bastard Cities downtrodden that Kairos was the superior power. You armed them with weapons and knowledge of a signal that you would raise when the time was right. As the armies appeared outside the walls, you ignited the spark that fanned their anger into a full-scale riot. The chaos they spread in Kairos' name weakened the city to such an extent that its inevitable fall was but a formality. The Bastard City, 428 TR. The Bastard City settled into a new state of normalcy, with every tower displaying Kairos' banner. Your name was whispered alongside rumors of a decorated career to come. The armies divided into 2 fronts and migrated south. Tunon sent word that you were to join the next frontier of Kairos' conquest, either as judge and overseer of the settlement of Lethean's Crossing, or as a war advisor with the armies advancing into the realm of Apex. Let's see what Lethean's Crossing is. Built in the shadow of an old walls junction in the realm of Haven, Lethean's Crossing is a growing trading settlement. The nearby rivers are rich in iron ore, though the locals lack the technology to smelt and forge the element. In the years following Kairos' conquest of the Tiers, the population of Lethean's Crossing swelled with refugees fleeing the destruction of their homelands. The presence of the forge-bound mining the iron, along with their guards, makes this makeshift settlement a vital resource for Kairos' armies. So I can be an administrator, or I can advise the conquest. Let's be an administrator. .429 TR, Year 2 of Kairos' conquest. Lethean's Crossing. Years ago, Lethean the Bold founded a small merchant town at the intersection of ancient old walls. A pact between the settlers and a mercenary company meant that caravans were able to travel without fear of bandits or bane, and the town thrived in modest insignificance. Lethean's Crossing drew Kairos' attention for the iron deposits in the surrounding hills. With the region under Kairos' control, the northern smith mages could set up workshops to refine ore and arm the disfavored with the finest weapons in the known world. The Archon of Secrets dismantled the mercenary support with a generous bribe, taking the crossing in a bloodless victory. Tunon dispatched you to travel alongside Kairos' forces and bring order to the region. Alright, 2 choices again. The iron must flow. Kairos' smith mages worked day and night to create weapons. No one faulted their dedication, yet production was low. The plans that came to light proved divisive to the disfavored and Scarlet Chorus. On one hand, any additional manpower was needed for fighters, not forges. On the other hand, the celebrated weaponry of Kairos' armies needed to be fiercely guarded. So we can draw from Scarlet Chorus recruits. The Scarlet Chorus took refugees from the recent influx and forced them to serve in Kairos' military. You repurposed these individuals to haul wagons of iron for the smith mages. This proved an inconvenience to the Scarlet Chorus, who relied on their force of numbers to be effective in the field. Or you conscripted help from a local tribe of beastmen. Their strength would more than offset their disobedience. The disfavor protested that savages have access to the secrets of iron, but their voices were few compared to the support of the Scarlet Chorus. Alternatively, the cult of Siren. Siren, Archon of Song, used her arcane charm to lure locals into joining Kairos' army. As a patroness of the Scarlet Chorus, her efforts were critical to the conscription of new recruits. When an enthralled, disfavored soldier joined her cult, his company feared that the Archon was growing out of control and needed to be stopped. So the disfavored demanded the Archon of Song cease her recruitment practices and that they be allowed to violently subdue her cult of followers. The loss of soldiers was a significant setback to the Scarlet Chorus's conscription efforts. And in Scarlet Chorus tradition, you sent the latest batch of cultists to the front line of the Apex campaign. Those who survived were welcome to remain in Kairos' military, and their performance would stand as testimony to Siren's effectiveness. I kind of prefer the iron must flow, and in this case we will repurpose people towards iron. So the Scarlet Chorus took refugees from the recent influx and forced them to serve in Kairos' military. You repurposed these individuals to haul wagons of iron for the Smith Mages. This proved an inconvenience to the Scarlet Chorus, who relied on their force of numbers to be effective in the field. The population of Lethean's Crossing had swelled from the emptying of lands destroyed by Kairos' armies. Although the Scarlet Chorus fought to keep the refugees under their control, the need for production could not wait. The new recruits were reassigned to haul iron ore from treacherous mine shafts, labor more befitting slaves than Kairos' artisans. Though the disfavored grew stronger with the advantage of more weapons, the Scarlet Chorus diminished as their ranks found themselves with one less opportunity for growth. A Guardian's Due. Kairos' armies used Lethean's Crossing as a reprieve from the war. The city grew more crowded as a mercenary army hired by the Archon of Secrets occupied the barracks, where they drained resources and escalated tensions. The disfavored wanted nothing to do with the sellswords, but the Scarlet Chorus sought to invite them into the fold. So we can segregate the mercenaries. The disfavored demanded that the mercenaries be kept from Kairos' armies. The righteous occupiers would not deign to share provisions or supplies with degenerate sellswords. You built a separate barracks and mess hall in order to keep the sellswords out of the army's way, and enacted strict laws against disorderly conduct, or challenge their worth. You let the Scarlet Chorus and the mercenaries engage in combat games and challenges, and allowed laws against revelry and merriment to go unenforced. Those who won the contests took the greater share of provisions, and sellswords of merit were invited to join Kairos' army. Okay, this is actually a very funny image. So I'd probably go with the disfavored on the Guardian's Due. Or Pick of the Armory. Since you aided the production of weapons, commanders of both armies lobbied for additional arms. They offered all manner of bribes to be next in line for a fitting session with the Masters of the Forge. How do you sate the lust for iron? Choose the disfavored. You let the disfavored have the iron, keeping the best tools in the hands of the elite. The Scarlet Chorus saw the slight as an obvious display of preferential treatment. Choose the Scarlet Chorus. You gave iron arms to the Scarlet Chorus commanders, knowing they pay very well for any killing tool. Weaponry of such a claim was typically reserved for the highest disfavored officers, but you were open to changing tradition under the circumstances. Or remain neutral. You allowed no changes to the orderly dispensation of iron and punished those who tried to bribe you twice. Oh, that is me. Using language that left nothing open to interpretation, you let both of the commanders know that bribery would not be tolerated in Kairos' military. That didn't stop either of them from seeking you out again, making promises of wealth and advancement if you showed special favor. Deciding that enough was enough, you ordered both of the commanders flogged in view of their armies, letting pain and humiliation teach them where reason had failed. Who controlled the crossing? Tragedy struck when a mercenary hired by the Voices of Nerat injured a forge-bound artisan, leaving him unable to practice his craft. Tunon ordered the mercenaries to leave the city in the hands of Kairos' more responsible servants. Only a token garrison could be left behind while the armies returned to the front. As the disfavored and Scarlet Chorus showed increasing tension and hostility toward each other, Tunon decreed at best that only one force control the crossing. Who controlled the crossing? So I'm slightly inclined, prior to the selections here, I'm slightly inclined to give it to the disfavored because the disfavored rely on iron. Giving it to the chorus strikes me as a good way to disrupt the flow of weaponry to the invading force, but let's see where it goes. You granted control of Lethean's Crossing to the disfavored or to the Scarlet. Nope. The disfavored placed a modest garrison in the settlement of Lethean's Crossing. Though the force was larger than might be needed to police the small settlement, protecting the forge-bound ironsmiths became the true agenda of the defense force, as these magical craftsmen kept the disfavored invasion force suited in iron. Relieved at the departure of the Scarlet Chorus, the citizens of Lethean's Crossing felt they got the least of two burdens. You received word from Graven Ash thanking you for your decision. The Forgebound and their weaponry could not be entrusted to the voices of Nerat. With the mercenaries expelled and Lethean's Crossing under new leadership, Kairos' forces congratulated themselves on bringing order to the settlement and guaranteeing a productive flow of resources. Over the course of this diversion, the army front advanced further into the tiers. Your skills were needed in the realm of Azure, Stalwart, or the Vellum Citadel. The Vellum Citadel was a library fortress, the largest archive of the written word in the tiers. The School of Ink and Quill protected and maintained the archive of ancient lore for centuries, standing apart from the political upheavals of the younger realms, and an enduring pillar of knowledge and culture. So Kairos dispatched the Archon of Stone to subjugate the nation of Azure. With its easily defended position and rich military tradition, the realm of Stalwart was the most formidable realm in the tiers. Or the Vellum Citadel, Kairos' conquering gaze fell upon the Vellum Citadel, its treasure, its knowledge, its secrets. .430 TR, Year 3 of Kairos' conquest. Vellum Citadel. The Vellum Citadel was an archive and library of massive scale. Its inhabitants were known as the School of Ink and Quill, a circle of mages that centuries ago carved out their own mountainous refuge on lands unsettled by other major realms. Legend said that the Citadel housed a treasure trove of arcane knowledge. The Overlord's spies infiltrated the school and confirmed as much. The time was ripe to send a detachment to the Great Library Fortress and force the scholars to yield to Kairos. Chain of Command, By the way, I should explain who Kairos is. Kairos is a name out of legend. For centuries, the Overlord has consolidated power, sending vast armies to swallow entire realms. The most powerful mystic the world has ever seen, Kairos can issue edicts, magical proclamations that level cities, spread pox, sunder the lands, or change the course of seasons. The Archons, master of magic throughout the known world, bow to Kairos, and the Overlord readily destroys any Archons unwilling to kneel. These sorceresses and madmen lead the Overlord's armies in near-endless conquest. As the realms of the known world fall to the Overlord, these captured territories are divvied up amongst the Archons to manage. Able to deliver suffering and woe to every corner of Terratus without leaving the capital, few have seen the Overlord in person. Though Kairos' name is the single most recognized name in the world, only the Archons can say what the Overlord looks like. So we've got Chain of Command. A detachment of Kairos' army marched on the Vellum Citadel, expecting an orderly surrender. As they neared the main gates, a blast of arcane energy struck the commanders dead. Suddenly, the highest-ranking officer alive, Kairos' forces looked to you for the next steps. The call weighed on your mind, as it had an immediate influence on soldier losses. So you ordered the expendable Scarlet Chorus to attack, commanding the disorderly mob forward to give the elite disfavored a chance to withdraw. Though a costly maneuver in terms of lives lost, this assured the survival of the most capable and effective soldiers. Or you ordered the disfavored to advance their shield wall, knowing that a handful of Kairos' elite soldiers could hold off the attack until the Scarlet Chorus retreated. You knew the disfavored would despise you for any losses at the Scarlet Chorus's expense, but this was a small price to pay for saving lives. Or Song of Ensnarement. Siren, Archon of Song, used her power to enthrall enemy mages who crept beyond the Citadel walls. After Kairos' forces rounded up the arcane practitioners, the disfavored began executing the new captives before they could share dangerous knowledge, a crime under Kairos' law with the Scarlet Chorus. So, muzzle the mages. You calm the disfavored with a compromise. The sages' mouths would be bound with iron bridles, preventing them from speaking their forbidden knowledge. Or you punish the disfavored for executing mages bound to the Scarlet Chorus, ordering that several disfavored soldiers be given to the Archon of Song as her personal bodyguards. This is a tough one. I'm slightly biased towards the disfavored, so I do like the idea of preserving the elite units. Yeah. You ordered the expendable Scarlet Chorus to attack, commanding the disorderly mob forward to give the elite disfavored a chance to withdraw. Though a costly maneuver in terms of lives lost, this assured the survival of the most capable and effective soldiers. Ever itching for a fight, the howling mob still recognized your maneuver, the sacrificial move that it was. Those from the Scarlet Chorus who ran headlong into battle made promises of a reckoning upon their return. Thankfully for you, hardly any of them limped back in one piece. Those few who survived made fevered whisperings their grievances, naming you as a villain to the Scarlet Chorus. Plunder of parchment. The army captured a supply caravan overflowing with arcane books. When the disfavored started a bonfire of forbidden text, the Scarlet Chorus rescued the tomes from the flames and attacked. So in accordance with the disfavored's wishes, you upheld Kairos' law regarding forbidden lore and had all of the texts burned, or you decreed that the disfavored are welcome to burn their half of the plunder, but the Scarlet Chorus has a rightful claim to the other half, provided you first review the text first to eliminate any that touched on forbidden knowledge. Or lost to the mountains, the disfavored learned of a hidden enemy enclave and sent scouts to locate it. They never returned from their mission. The remaining disfavored soldiers demanded that you send the Scarlet Chorus to retrieve their scouts, but the Scarlet Chorus flatly refused to fall into the same trap. They recommended the scouts be treated as wartime casualties. So order the Scarlet Chorus to send scouts to locate and rescue the lost disfavored patrol, or you can sign disfavored scouts to their fate. If the elite of Kairos' army could not return on their own, there was no sense in wasting lives of the Scarlet Chorus. I actually like this idea here that I'm going to review the Scarlet Chorus. So you decreed that the disfavored are welcome to burn their half of the plunder, but the Scarlet Chorus had rightful claim to the other half, provided you first review the texts to eliminate any that touched on forbidden knowledge. The Scarlet Chorus agreed to your generous terms, and you set to poring over every manuscript before it was handed over. The work took several evenings, and you came away with a glimpse of truths better left unknown. Taking the burden upon yourself was a less risky alternative than disseminating it among Kairos' ranks, though it didn't help you sleep at night. The Edict of Fire. Food and morale dwindled as the siege party realized the enemy would win this war of attrition. Tunon sent word that Kairos' patience had run thin. The Overlord would cast an Edict of Fire on the enemy. The parchment arrived in a slender case of engraved iron. Written on it, the words of a spell powerful enough to destroy the Vellum Citadel. You had the choice of when to read the edict. Reading it at sunrise would offer your enemies no warning of the devastation to come. You could also wait until sunset, giving them ample time to flee or make amends. So we can give no warning. Opting to give the enemy no quarter, you proclaimed the Edict of Fire at the first moments of dawn, granting the enemy no warnings of the destruction to come. Though the chorus insisted your actions doomed their spies, the disfavor applauded your decision. Or, claiming that they still had spies within the Citadel, the Scarlet Chorus urged you to warn the mages of the Overlord's edict. Granting their request, you met the enemy under a blue flag of peace and warned them of their doom, giving the chorus spies and the enemy a chance to run. You confronted the mages with a warning and hoped the message was received. The hour before sunset, numerous figures were spotted fleeing the Citadel. As the sun dipped under the horizon, you read the words of the edict. The earth shook, and red-orange light glowed in the foundation of the sprawling Citadel, bubbling up from under the library. A torrent of lava heaved with explosive force, gushing from windows and between loose bricks, melting winding trenches in the surrounding land. Days later, the flames still raged on, the conflagration continually fed and renewed by the power of the edict. The armies of Kairos left the devastation of the Vellum Citadel in silence. From that day forward, the Tears came to know the once noble Citadel as the Burning Library. This was an undisputed loss of resources, knowledge, culture, and life. But a message had been sent. The Overlord will not tolerate defiance. You didn't have long to rest before Tunon called you into service once more. You were one of the last to depart from the mountains, and as you journeyed off, you spotted a few campfires in the mountains. They were mere specks dwarfed by the inferno, the last gasps of survivors, or perhaps looters from Kairos' armies, bored and daring enough to pick through the ashes. Conquest complete. You have reached the end of Kairos' conquest. Do you want to continue or erase your progress and start over? I think we should start over now that we've got Pro here, so she can appreciate the full experience. Sorry, just 1 minute.
The year is 431, and Kairos' invasion has shattered all major opposition in the tiers. The Younger Realms, the Bastard Tier, the Free Cities. All who defied Kairos lay broken by battle, or bowed in surrender. The two armies of the Overlord, the Disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus, now control our lands. But our will is not yet extinguished. Not entirely. In the Valley of Vendrian's Well, those of us unwilling to bow to Kairos have banded together in defiance. Violating an oath of surrender from 2 years prior, we have staged a bloody uprising, murdering the Disfavored and Scarlet Chorus garrison in a midnight assault.
I agree completely, Erasmus. Like, there's a lot of ideas that are really good in here, and I because I haven't gone all the way through the game, I don't know if some of the more lukewarm reception is just because in the end it doesn't quite come together as a convincing whole. Because the thing is, here I think there's a lot more nostalgia for the isometric CRPG than there is like a genuine, like, I want to be careful on this, right? People like what they like. I'm not trying to suggest that people who love Baldur's Gate don't actually love Baldur's Gate, but I have noticed a tendency for people to sort of speak about these kinds of games in these sort of hushed tones. But when I see, like, I have Baldur's Gate on my tablet, and I do tend to notice that people talk about it a lot, but don't play it all the way through. And so I don't know. It's sometimes hard for me, because like the thing is that you're going to get an earful if you talk about not liking Baldur's Gate. But you know, the revealed preferences do seem to be that there are a group of people who maybe liked it at one point, but games have sort of moved on, and they do enjoy some of the more Larian things that have been introduced. And there's probably like a middle ground too. But yeah, I do, like, I will say I have still not finished Pillars of Eternity. I've been really trying to go through it. I am much more interested in this world and the ideas behind it than Pillars of Eternity. I actually kind of feel like Pillars of Eternity almost feels a bit like a chore when I try to like get through the story.
With their main forces spread across the tiers, the Disfavored and Scarlet Chorus redeploy to Vendrian's Well to crush the resistance. But months pass with no definitive battle. As disagreement and discord paralyze the Archons, we bide our time and wait for our message of insurrection to spread across the tiers. The Overlord is not amused, and Kairos has one message for the Archons: crush the Oathbreakers or die. Kairos backs this threat with an edict, a magical commandment that can slay all in the valley should the order be ignored. The honor of proclaiming this edict fell to you. Sent across the mountains to Vendrian's Well, you carry the Overlord's edict to read before the Archons. As you finally make your way through the winding mountain passes into the valley, the ground trembles, and Kairos' magic seals the way behind you. You are trapped in Vendrian's Well, with Kairos' armies and the Oathbreakers. The only way to survive is to fulfill the terms of the Overlord's edict, in any way that you can.
Fatebinder Solon, I presume. We've been expecting you. If this is your first visit to the world of Tyranny, watch for these windows to help you become familiar with the game. You can disable tutorial messages at any time from the game's options menu. Lore and reactivity tooltips. In many conversations, you will see words or phrases displayed in a green text color. The tooltips on these provide you with information that your character knows about the world based on previous choices that you've made. These links can help explain why another character is being friendly or hostile to you. Interesting. I thought these would produce some kind of writing. Oh, there we go. Kairos the Overlord be praised. When I heard the avalanche, I feared the valley was sealed with you on the other side. The disfavored warrior clasps her gauntlet to a breastplate, the traditional salute of her legion. Conversations involve you, another character, and sometimes additional parties like bystanders or companions who may interject. The choices you make change how the story develops and will build a reputation for your character over time. People in the world will learn of your reputations, good and bad, and respond accordingly. Your character's attributes, skills, history, and gender, as well as decisions you made in the conquest, may all open up options for you in dialogue. These options are not necessarily superior to other responses, but give you a wider variety of choices to select from. The manner in which someone responds to your choices depends on their individual personality and attitude. Each character who speaks to you will display a banner beneath their portrait. These banners indicate which faction the character is allied with. The tooltip on these banners will provide details about how the faction feels about you. You will often see the names of important characters and locations displayed in a gold text color. These tooltips on these glossary entries provide you with important information about the world. The commander wouldn't say why the governor of Lethian's Crossing would be coming, but since we have no forges here, I can imagine you're here to knock some sense into the voices of Nerat. So we'll explain who that is now that we've gone through the conquest. Known in his official capacity as the Archon of Secrets, the voices of Nerat is equal parts genius and madman. Rumors abound that he can steal the minds of others, though few, if any, are alive to confirm as much. The subjects of his interrogation are never heard from again, and the Archon is able to recall the memories of his victims with startling accuracy. He is the inconsistent leader of the Scarlet Chorus, vacillating between commanding from the vanguard and directing his armies in absentia. Despite his strange methods, no one doubts that the voices of Nerat is an accomplished strategist, even suggesting that his madness stems from thinking hundreds, perhaps thousands of steps ahead of his enemies. I imagine you're here to knock some sense in the voices of Nerat. She catches herself, clearing her throat with a smile. I mean, mediate with the Archon so that we might agree on a plan to wipe out these Oathbreakers. In honor of the Vendrian Guard reneging on their surrender of 429, soldiers in both the Disfavored and Scarlet Chorus now refer to these tiersmen as Oathbreakers. It is perhaps one of the few points of agreement between the Disfavored and Scarlet Chorus. But on a personal note, it is good to see another Harbinger. By Kairos' will, most of our old invasion force still lives, but most of us have been scattered across the tiers, reassigned as needs change. I miss those days, when there was so much battle ahead of us, so much glory still to be won. But I know the Archons are expecting you. Don't let me wax nostalgically about the old days. Let me just take a look here. Conquest decision, barely 10,000 disfavored departed the Northern Empire to conquer the tiers, and the disfavored in the country today were part of that original muster. While Scarlet Chorus faces come and go, you've seen a lot of the same disfavored over the years. This is Aurora, Stone Shield of the second cohort, veteran of the original Vendrian's Well campaign 2 years prior. You saw battle with her and her team in the infiltration of the tiers that occupied weeks before the major opening battle at the Gates of Judgment. Those who took part in these daring pre-war raids refer to each other affectionately as Harbingers. Can you hear that hum in the air, that glow around the rocks? The avalanche is Kairos' magic. The Overlord has sealed the valley. Your senses see more than mine, good Fatebinder. I do not pretend to know much about such things. But if that was Kairos' magic and you're here on important business, well, You don't have to be the Archon of Secrets to guess that you're here to proclaim an edict. What does Kairos have in store for the enemy? 10 years of festering plague? An edict of twisted bones? I'm in a hurry to deliver a message to the Archons. Well, you've traveled a long way. I won't keep you further. I'm sure the Archons will want to hear from you at... Her voice falls silent, her attention snapping eastward with alarm. Do you hear that? More runners, third time this week. The Oathbreakers keep trying to send messengers through the mountains to gather help from outside the valley. She points over to the collapsed path where you arrived, but they're a bit too late for that now. Come, let's show these Oathbreakers a good fight. For the glory of Kairos! Help the disfavored, battle the Vendrian Guard. All right. Tyranny uses a pausable real-time combat system. Because you will often manage more than one character at a time, it's a good idea to pause the game, issue orders, and resume real-time to see the orders play out. The options menu also contains many choices for automatic pausing when certain conditions are met, e.g. the start of combat. Press spacebar to pause or unpause the game. Your character can always perform basic attacks using their equipped weapon or their fists if fighting unarmed. Characters also have special abilities and spells they can use in combat. When a character is selected, their ability bar displays their hotkeyed abilities. As new abilities and spells are gained, they are automatically added to the ability bar. All of your character's abilities and spells can be accessed by selecting the category icon at the bottom of the selected frame. Right. Abilities are grouped into talent, spells, combo abilities, artifact abilities, reputation abilities, stances, category icons for weapon sets, and quick items follow. To use an ability, left-click on the ability icon or press the hotkey corresponding to its location on the ability bar. Your cursor will change to indicate whether your mouse is over a valid target for the ability. If the cursor has a red X in the corner, you are not over a valid target. If the cursor has a pair of feet in the corner, you will need to move closer to the target to use the ability. For abilities that target party members, healing spells, buffs, etc., you can click on the party portraits to target the ability on that party member. Press escape at any time to cancel targeting the ability. All characters in the game, friend and foe, have 5 primary defenses against attacks: parry, dodge, endurance, will, and magic. These defenses are based on the character's attributes, equipped items, and other effects. A character's accuracy is based on their skill with the type of weapon they are wielding. Accuracy is compared to the appropriate defenses when an attack is made to determine how likely it is that attack will hit. There are 4 possible results from any attack: hit, critical hit, graze, and miss. A critical hit increases your damage, while a graze reduces it. With each attack, you gain experience in the weapon skills used to make that attack. Even a miss will grant some experience.
Will do.
Did I not set it on fire?
Right. On it.
That's one down. Let's check further along the path for more. There are 6 categories of talents available to your character: leadership, defense, power, agility, ranged, and magic. With each level, you gain 1 point to purchase a talent from any of these categories. Within a talent tree, each tier of talent unlocks based on how many talent points have been spent within that tree. To learn a talent, select its icon, then click the save button to confirm your choice. Each companion has their own talent trees with unique abilities. These abilities unlock in the same manner as your character's talents. As you spend points within a companion talent tree, further tiers of talents become available. I will never be done reading, bro. I'm assuming all the tutorials are sort of front-loaded here. The avalanche has us blocked. Think you could fit through the rubble? Press your weight against the boulder directly in your path until it starts to move. Brute strength will also work.
I got it. Will do.
Don't bother with me. Get down to the pass, Drastus. The soldier clutches gut and winces. You can see a hint of entrails between his fingers. Wounded, and it's not trivial. He doubles over. He laughs through clenched teeth. This, but a scratch. I've seen twice as worse 10 times over. He doubles over in pain, gagging and shivering. Keep a hold of your guts then. Farewell. He releases his wounds to flash you a pain salute. Hail Kairos. There's definitely plenty of reading, but it's quite tutorial heavy at the start here, so. Several skulls bleached by the sun and picked clean by carrion birds are spiked on a roughly hewn post. It is the only heraldry the Scarlet Chorus needs.
Try and catch me, worm.
A young Scarlet Fury weaves around the Vendrian Guard attackers, avoiding their weapons with fluid grace. She nods to acknowledge you. Scarlet Furies are the elite fighters of the Scarlet Chorus, distinguished by their graceful attacks and murderous persistence. Better armed and trained than most Chorus conscripts, the Furies are found among the vanguard of battle, their brutal displays of skill inspiring bloodlust in the masses and fear in the enemy. I don't know. I get by with an AI, and I mean, look at me. A breathless enemy soldier pauses to glance at her countryman. This one's crazy. Too much lead in her water. We should cut our losses and turn back.
Ha! Fate finder. Here at last. Care to join me in putting these cowards out of their misery?
She nods to the armed soldiers bearing down on her. Save something for me. For the realm of Apex, charge! The Vendrian Guard level their weapons and advance. Alright, so she's got Blood-Soaked Stone, coordinate with Verse to knock your target prone, then follow up with a strong bleeding attack. Burning Iron, launch a burning arrow that sets foes on fire. And Skewer versus thrusts both of her weapons into the target, penetrating armor.
Not a problem, boss. I can tell you didn't spend the conquest in a diplomat's tent.
The fighter surveys the fresh corpses and nods with satisfaction.
I'm Verse, by the way. But there are more important things to take care of than introductions. Those Vendrian guard we killed didn't come alone.
She gestures to the skirmish unfolding in the pass below, shaking her head. Ready if you are.
Eager. I like that. Before we go, you might search among the remains of our fallen comrades. Wherever they're bound, I doubt they'll miss their boots, much less any rings or any useful iron they might be clutching.
Rings were first introduced by Kairos in the early years of the Northern Conquest. The currency of the divided realms was of questionable value and easily counterfeit, and rings offered the promise of a shared economy simple enough for anyone to understand. Today, they are the standardized currency across all of the known lands of Terratus. Their commonality and ease of transportation quickly made rings the preferred unit of trade, even in realms where Kairos' peace is not observed. I see your point. Nice and practical.
No reason to pity the fallen. Before long, we might wish we'd joined them here. But at least we'll enjoy heavy pockets and warm toes. For the voices of Nerat!
Verse furrows her brow and focuses down on the battle to come. But first we loot. An empty spike stands waiting to claim its victim. The symbol of the Scarlet Chorus is smeared in blood on the tattered cloth tent. No effort has been made to repair their gaping tears.
Sorry.
Weapons and armor are strewn haphazardly around the cart. Every blade shows signs
I can't.
of rust, and every piece of armor is in need of repair. Actually, seeing as she was introducing the idea of inventory management. Wait a minute, I distinctly remember picking up... Yeah, there we go, party stash. So Scarlet Fury helm... I mean, it's a helmet. Scroll contains a magical accent which slightly increases the range of a spell. I'll save that for later. Eyes forward, no looking back. The Vendrian Guard warrior roars with his falx head held high, his words largely lost over the din of combat. The falx is an enduring symbol of military life in the tiers. Adapted from the agrarian scythes of Azure, the curved blade was, in ages past, the weapon of peasants forced into battle in the last century. The nobles of Apex took a liking to this weapon, and it has since become the weapon in all serious Vendrian Guard warriors endeavor to master. Stand aside or your funeral will be over the side of the bluff. Seeing you squarely in his path, the soldier points his weapon your way. I applaud your bravery, but I implore you to end this foolishness and lay down your arms. Not a chance. If I surrender, I'm as good as dead. At least we can drag some of Kairos' chosen along our short journey into the void. As he signals his men to charge, the sound of chanting rises from the south, drawing his attention. Scarlet Chorus reinforcements, hurry! Run down the Oathbreakers, let none escape. From the red mob of reinforcements from the south, a blood chanter emerges at the head of the rabble, the ornamental crest of her staff pulsing with crimson tones. Signing sigils of magic and wordlessly moving her mouth, the blood chanter scribes a series of spells into the air. A red glow surrounds the Vendrian Guard warriors as the chanter's magic worms its way into their minds, blinding them with rage. Hold position, all of you! You there! Keep to the path! The warrior gestures along the canyon trail, but his soldiers turn their attention to the Scarlet Chorus, roaring challenges. No, don't engage them! We need to run! His orders falling on deaf ears, the warrior reluctantly readies his weapon.
Heads up.
The companion Verse has joined your party. Verse is a capable warrior, skilled in both melee and ranged combat. As you acquire companions, you will need to balance their strengths against the strengths of your character to be successful in combat. While it is possible to adventure alone, you will find the game more rewarding with a well-balanced party. There are now 2 characters in your party, and both are selected. Any commands you issue now will affect both party members. To select a single party member, click on their selection circle, their portrait, or press F1 to select the player character, or F2 to select Verse. To select multiple party members, click and hold anywhere on the screen and drag the marquee over the circles of the party members you'd like to include. You can either control your new companion directly, or you can enable their AI and have them attack and use their abilities automatically. Once their AI is enabled, you can always select them and tell them to attack a specific enemy or use an ability, and they will follow your orders. You can right-click on the AI button. If you right-click on the AI button, you can see the AI settings for your party members. You can set the auto-attack behavior of each character, which determines how they attack enemies. For companions, you can also choose AI packages that determine how they will use their abilities in combat. Verse has several stance abilities that provide her with different benefits in combat. Stances are modal abilities, meaning they can be toggled on and off. Only one stance can be active at a time. When a stance is deactivated, all stance abilities enter a cooldown for a short duration. So we can go for Seeking Sheath for extra accuracy, 3 Whispers for better dodge, or Red Geyser, lower dodge, bonus damage to your next attack equal to 50% of the damage received from attackers, and a lower parry. I think Seeking Sheath might be a little more appropriate here. That didn't seem to do anything.
We do. Right.
Count on it.
Oh, let's talk. Come quick, we have a situation on the cliffside. They have the commander.
Right.
Telex Tyrell, stow your weapons, or we find out how long a man screams before hitting the ravine down below. Cornered between a precipitous drop and a band of angry soldiers, the Oathbreaker warrior holds a disfavored officer at knife point. Skewer him! Worry not for me. Graven Ash will protect. The disfavored officer winces, blood seeping from the seams of his bracers and cuirass. The disfavored are all protected by the Archon Graven Ash's mystical aegis, and many will attest that it allows disfavored to endure truly staggering punishment. However, there are no documented cases of a disfavored surviving decapitation, being sliced in half, or other wantonly fatal doses of trauma. It is highly unlikely that Ash's aegis will save Drastus from his neck being sliced open. You heard the man. He plainly invited you to use that little blade of yours. What are you waiting for? Permission from your pimp? This blade, with a jerk of the knife, he slices off a clump of Drastus's matted hair. If you're so eager to see your ally dead, then just step closer. So, lower your weapon, then charge forward and wrest the knife from him. The Oathbreaker cracks a wide smile as you lower your weapon. That's right. Now the rest of you, drop those weapons. With his attention on the other warriors, you dash forward. He reaches out his dagger to slay Drastus, but your hand is already on his wrist. With a wrenching twist, you mangle his hand, dropping the dagger harmlessly to the ground. The disfavored warriors rushed forward from either side of you. Tyrell barely manages a strained gasp before being hacked and impaled upon their swords and spears. Kairos be praised, that Oathbreaker fought with the rage of Cairn himself. Drastus slides a trembling hand along the cut on his neck. Thank you, Fatebinder. I thought today was my last. Cairn, the mountainous Archon of Stone, accompanied the disfavored on the conquest of the Tiers. His temper and proclivity towards destructive solutions often branded him a liability to the otherwise orderly takeover, but his powers were not easily dismissed. During the Azure campaign, Cairn went on a rampage, declaring himself independent of Kairos, and the conquest an unlawful sham. Kairos drafted an Edict of Stone to put an end to the rebellious Archon, and his petrified corpse rests in the ruins of Azure to this day. From the look of it, I guess they thought if they swarmed the pass, maybe one might make it out. We found a few scraps of parchment on their bodies. Drastus holds out a handful of crumpled parchments for your inspection. A student of letters such as yourself should be able to make sense of this. Literacy is rare in the Northern Empire, where the disfavored are born and trained. Time spent reading and writing is, after all, time not spent sparring and readying one's body and mind for battle. Examine the parchment. Repeating the same messages in different written scripts, the parchment explains that the Vendrian Guard's desire to overthrow Kairos' Archons and rout their armies from the Tiers. The pages aren't addressed to any specific reader, but rather openly invites all who remain loyal to the Younger Realms to gather at Vendrian's Well. Younger Realms, the realms of Azure, Apex, Stalwart, and Haven, are collectively known as the Younger Realms, and together they represent the major political factions of the Tiers. For centuries, the Younger Realms have battled amongst themselves for control of the Tiers, with every realm having been at war with each other at some point in memorable history. This lack of unified resistance allowed Kairos' armies to swiftly conquer the Tiers. Recruitment material. They were trying to bring more traitors to the fight. Well, from the look of it, we kept them from slipping out of the valley. Whatever they hoped to accomplish, I think their plan died here. The Archons are expecting you. When you're ready, leave by the gate to the southeast and follow the trails downslope for a few hours. You'll see the campfires leagues away. Can't miss it. The once pure water of Queen Lycarius' tears, has run red with blood since Kairos' forces invaded. The ancient Weeping Mother statue pays homage to the Queen Lycarius, first of her name. Fresh water once flowed from the statue, but when Kairos' forces attacked Vendrian's Well in 429, the statue began weeping blood, and has done so ever since. Fatebinder, Aurora salutes you as you approach. We're honored by your presence. Need something? What's the situation here in Vendrian's Well? The Oathbreakers hold the citadel at the heart of the valley, the one built around the base of the spire. Aurora points east towards the tower in the distance. The Mittani River has been our largest headache during the siege. It's unsafe for armored troops to ford, save at key locations, and the enemy knows this as well as we do. I know we'd be a lot farther along if the Scarlet Chorus used its alleged strength and numbers to ford the river themselves and overwhelm the enemy. Aurora looks at Verse with a disapproving air. As it is, we must take the valley slowly and advance the disfavored bulwark, since that's where the real work gets done. Because all it takes is numbers to cross a river under a hail of arrows. If the disfavored were quicker to act, maybe the Vendrian Guard wouldn't be so trained up to face us. If either of you was correct, the campaign would be over and I wouldn't be here. A fair point. The Legion is eager to gain some perspective on our quarrels. Consequently, I retract my previous remark. Really? Because I don't. Next time you say something, try to mean it. How long have you been with the disfavored? 7 years. She pauses to count on her fingers. 2 seasons, mayhap a handful of days. I trained at Fort Resolution a bit before the conquest. Compared to the commanders you find around camp or stationed at Iron Hearth, that makes me one of the young bloods. This has been a long and grueling campaign, but the end is in sight. We'll soon have the Oathbreakers back under control. Then we can rest, retrain, even cycle out troops so we can see our families again. What can you tell me of the Vendrian Guard? They're the last gasp of the younger realms. Among them are warriors that escaped the bastard city siege, a few refugees from other victories, and a bunch of Vendrian locals with delusions of independence. These southern wastrels cannot match our iron nor the chorus's numbers. What on Terratus gave them the nerve to nerve to rise up and ask for the second helping of battle is anyone's guess. Seen anything interesting during the war? I once saw a forge-bound artisan set himself on fire. Occupational hazard. That was an unpleasant day, the first of many, to be honest. I heard about the edict you proclaimed at the burning library, but thankfully I wasn't there. One fire was enough for me. She taps on her gauntlet on her breastplate in salute. Have a pleasant siege, Fatebinder.
Can't do that.
So I'll sort out the inventory in a little bit, but... The torn banner bears the scratched-out icon of the disfavored. The army's original symbol has been lost to history, and Graven Ash has never ordered a replacement, preferring the blasted icon over others. The Archon demands that all prisoners be given a chance to serve the chorus. These lying horsepawn had their chance long ago. I say kill him. The prisoner says his name is Targus Demos. Drastus lets out a long sigh, tapping his gauntleted finger to his temple. Then I don't think this is a complicated matter. He dies. His family's been a driving force in the Vendrian Guard. Killing him should demoralize what's left of the Tarkus clan. I'll almost be given a chance to find absolution in service to the Scarlet Chorus. The mage points a finger at the disfavored officer. And you know full well this has always been our way. He has a chance to be a slave or soldier. Only then do we feed him to the pigs. We let you take prisoners, but you can't control them. You send these conscripts out on patrol and they never return, defecting all over again. I can't let this nonsense strategy continue. Let's hear what the Fatebinder has to say. The Blood Chanter turns to you with a wide smile. My mates in the Blood Chanters Guild tell me you are the most supportive of our claims to the scrolls of the Vellum Citadel. Surely you understand that the Scarlet Chorus is wise enough not to squander any advantage you can take from the enemy. This is a tricky one, because there is a side that says execute the Oathbreaker, one chance to surrender is enough, but it does seem to be consistent with the way this army operates. The chorus should be allowed its chance to recruit new warriors. This is the sort of nonsense that got us into the mess we're in now. If we keep showing these mongrels mercy, they'll just bite us time and time again. If it will calm your nerves, I assure you this one won't be put on the battlefield. The mage snaps his fingers loudly, gesturing for her gang to listen. Make sure the prisoner is taken straight to the voices of Nerat. I won't keep you any longer, Fatebinder. I know you have important business in the valley. Drastus salutes you, his iron gauntlet rapping against his breastplate. For the glory of Kairos. You have my thanks, Fatebinder, but I must attend to the rest of my soldiers. The rope appears to be secured strongly enough to hold your weight.
See that?
Hello. Should probably follow up on a few of these little items here. So hidden objects, you've discovered a hidden object. Many areas of Terratus have hidden traps or chests. When discovered, these objects will highlight for all of your party to see. Enable scouting mode by pressing L, Alt to make finding these... left Alt to make finding these hidden objects easier. Siren songs. When combat starts, Siren will begin singing one of her songs. Each of her songs is a series of stanzas that produce different effects. As one stanza ends, its effects will linger, overlapping with the effects of the next stanza. You can change Siren's current song by selecting her and choosing a new song from her song interface. This would be really helpful if I had her in the party. Spell scrolls, you've discovered a scroll that contains the image for a sigil of magic. If a member of your party has a high enough lore skill, you can learn this sigil and use it to craft spells. If you meet the right lore requirement for this scroll, right-click on the scroll icon and then click on the Learn button at the bottom of the inspection interface. So we'll do that later. One of your party members is low on health. You can use the health potion to heal your character so they can continue fighting. Use a health potion. Using a health potion is an instant action that the benefits apply immediately, even if your character is on recovery. Afterwards, all consumables are on cooldown for a short duration. Consumables can be added to the quick item slots in your character's inventory so they can be used in combat. Disengagement attack. One of your party members has been hit with a disengagement attack. A disengagement attack occurs when one character is engaging another character in combat and the person they are engaging tries to move away. Be careful of how your party members move on the battlefield to avoid receiving disengagement attacks. Minimap, I don't think we need to go into detail with. Critical hits, I don't think we need to. I really wish... Yeah. All characters, friend or foe, must recover after every action they take in combat. This recovery timer is displayed above the character in combat. The length of recovery time based on the character, the weapon they're wielding, the armor they have equipped, and the attack ability or spell that they just used. If you want to issue an action to a character and want to cancel it, you can press X with that character selected. Once that action has progressed far enough, i.e. an attack has dealt damage, it cannot be cancelled. I don't remember a character going to 0. Your skills has gone up a rank. As you use your skills in the game, they accumulate experience. When they gain enough experience, they will increase their skill rank. As skill ranks increase, your characters will gain experience towards the next level. Press C to open the character sheet and view your current skill experience. We'll do that momentarily. So I think we learned engagement through disengagement. Yeah. All right. This doesn't seem too necessary to be going over. I think this is just going to take care of itself automatically. All right. Conqueror's Will. Kairos demands victory at Vendrian's Well as a Fatebinder of Tunon. You are tasked with delivering Kairos' edict to the Archons of the Disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus. They must defeat the rebellious Vendrian Guard soon, or everyone in the valley, allies and enemies alike, will die. Spell creation. Spells are created using 2 or more sigils. The core sigil determines the type of magic, such as fire, frost, or illusion. The expression sigil determines how that core shapes itself into the world, such as a ball of fire or frost enchanting a weapon. There are several categories of sigils that can accent a spell, granting it greater range, accuracy, or providing bonus secondary effects. To begin creating a spell, select the core sigil for the type of magic, followed by the expression sigil to determine what form the spell takes. For example, if you wanted to create a fireball spell, you would select the sigil of flame as the core, followed by the sigil of directed force to determine its shape. Spells have default names based on the selected core and expression. You can rename your spells using the spell interface. Each sigil requires a certain amount of lore skill to learn and control. Characters must have a lore skill at least equal to the spell's total difficulty in order to cast the spell. Once you've created the spell, use the Assign button to add that spell to one of your active party members. You can assign a spell to more than one character. If you want to modify the spell later, after you've discovered more sigils, select the spell from that party member you wish to modify. The interface will populate with that spell's information, allowing you to modify it and save your changes. You can customize your spells by selecting different icons. If you create multiple spells using the same core expression, but with different accents, these icons can help you differentiate spells. Each spell has a default name, but you can customize your spell's name to reflect the accents that you've added to the spell. Some accent sigils allow you to modify the area of effect or range of your spells. When you use these sigils, the casting UI will display the increased range as a second, more transparent area beyond the base area of the spell. So before I do too much with that, let's actually read the item. So, Lesser Sigil of Reaching Grasp. The scroll contains a magical accent which slightly increases the range of the spell. You've discovered a new sigil. Magic in the world of Tyranny comes from learning how to perfectly scribe sigils and empower them with energy. Open the spell interface by pressing P to create a new spell with the sigil you just learned. Also, I want to take a quick second here to look. So we've got the Vendrian Guard Heavy Bronze Greaves. Too heavy for my people. Bronze Falcons, two-handed, 14 to 19. So seems to me that this is a better weapon. Red Rivers, Gutseeker, and yeah. And at some point I should probably distribute the healing potions and such, but I'm slightly tempted. So that's a one-handed weapon. That'll go to verse if it goes anywhere. All right. So for weapons, not convinced by any of those. Sanguine Scroll, Blood of the Fallen, right-click for details. The fringes of the skull are splattered with blood that is not faded and retains its sickening moisture. And Kairos' Edict. The scroll contains the words of Kairos' Edict. You have been commanded to deliver. If Ascension Hall has not been taken by my forces before morning on the Day of Swords, all in the valley when this edict is passed will perish. All right, the thing that I wanted to do. So let's start with, actually I'll start with fire, expression, okay. And then if we add extra range. So it actually seems to me if I pick so I've got Searing Palm, but I want to add the range. Yeah, there we go. Works for me. I'm curious if Verse has enough subterfuge to be able to do something about this locked chest. Looks like she doesn't. Fatebinder, what an honor to have one of Tunon's court visit our humble holdfast. Need supplies? Bursting with energy, the merchant slams her palm down on top of the crate. If so, you've come to the right place. So what'll it be today? She spreads out a welcoming arm over her wares. I trust you've been granted proper stewardship over the goods you're peddling? Well, you see, Fatebinder, the merchant cranes her head to the side, scratching her neck. I think so. I've been handed these bits of scripts. She reaches across the stack of provisions to snatch a scroll case. But I'm not a woman of letters. Numbers are my strength, as you can well imagine. Let me see those. Certainly, good Fatebinder. She hands you the scroll case while wearing a quizzical expression. A cursory read indicates this merchant is granted the unlimited right to trade in a logistical capacity. When not supporting an active battle, she has the right to trade grain, copper, and olives anywhere in the tiers. Where did you get these? Harkian Bronze acquired these on my behalf, from Archon Tunon's agents, I believe. Her expression shows deep concern. Do you see any issue? Well, it looks like we have a slight problem here. Problem? But how can that be? I paid a span's profit for the stewardship. What sort of problem is there? So it's like, you have the right to trade as part of active war efforts. Currently, it would seem our armies are unable or unwilling to fight. See the problem? I'll say, forgive me, Fatebinder humor. Everything is fine. You what? A moment of shock blanches her face before a smile creeps over her. For fuck's sake, I thought I was in serious trouble. She shakes her head, laughing to herself. You've been around the chorus too long. Seems our sense of humor is rubbing off on your sense of justice. See what you have. So this would really, for me, be an opportunity to just sell the surplus that I have. Not so sure about Phalanx, though. I'll maybe hang on to these other ones, but... Troll Cop Fatebinder comedy options are admittedly pretty neat. Well, it's tricky too. This is one of the things that I do sometimes have difficulty with these kinds of games, is that, like, I can't necessarily know what the consequence of the... Like, so I can say, oh, there'll be a problem here. I'm sort of manifesting that problem into the world by saying that line. But I don't necessarily know what the problem is until I actually talk to the character. Lower to the voices. I don't think my bowels can take another month of siege. I think my teeth are falling out. Bunch of whiners. Hail Kairos. Disfavored camp. This fort was constructed shortly after routing rebels along the valley's western edge. The Archon, Graven Ash, directs all disfavored efforts from this location. It'll take you 2 hours to complete your journey from the Edring Ruins to the disfavored camp. Hail, Fatebinder. The disfavored scout nods at your approach. Camp's on up ahead. Don't mind us, just clearing out all the rabble. I still don't understand what I've done to offend. I respect that these are now disfavored lands, and I'm happy to give the Legion a proper toll, but she's going on about trading rights. What nonsense is that? I'm not allowed to trade one thing for another. It's not like I'm selling weapons to angry peasants or anything of that sort. The Overlord regulates all trade. If you lack the proper permits, your goods are forfeit. A trade permit? Well, how is I mean, to whom would I speak for such a thing? Not us and not our problem. Maybe we march your butt to Bastard City to plead your case before Tunon, but we'll lighten your burden and relieve you of your wares first. That should make the long trek a bit more bearable. Anything that can be argued before Tunon may be argued before me. What's there to discuss? We should kill this mongrel and... The warrior pauses, placing her hand in front of her mouth. If the Fatebinder wishes to weigh on the matter, the courtesy demands we listen. The soldier clears her throat, looking at you expectantly. This is a disfavored matter, but I know the agents of the court do so love to throw their judgments around. Well, you could rob me now and have my supplies today. The merchant grabs a flask from his cart, or you can leave me alive and have fermented honey all year long. I even know a few family recipes for painkillers and healing drafts. Certainly any army will need those. He uncorks a small ceramic vial, and the aroma of cloves and lanolin assaults your nose. What a coincidence. Your family's recipe for wound paste smells just like the Scarlet Fury's own concoction. Where did you steal this? I don't... The merchant tenses up, his face flushing red. I don't know what you're getting at. How stupid do you think I am? Pick him up by the collar. Slow down, I'll tell you everything. Just don't hurt me. I found most of everything in the forests of the valley. I'd keep my head low when I heard the sounds of combat, then I'd take a look and grab whatever wasn't claimed by the first victors. So then you stole from the disfavored dead. How else did you get your hands on that iron? The scout points at the merchant's cart. You would come here and sell us our own armaments? Trade regulator Batman. This does actually remind me in terms of Canadian-American political history. Does anybody know which president, and actually which prime minister if you want bonus points? So there's an American president that I believe grabbed the prime minister by the lapels. You did at one point. It's actually my favorite Canadian prime minister. So I believe, if I recall correctly, LBJ Erasmus. So I believe the story goes that he grabbed Lester B. Pearson by the lapels and like accused him of pissing on his rug, which was specifically about Vietnam. We're not talking about actual urination on a rug. This is not the North American Big Lebowski, but yeah, so. I like Lester B. Pearson a lot. All right. If anything has an owner, I will return it, but this iron would have turned to rust if left in the mud on the battlefield. The disfavored are few in number. Is that not right? You need a man like me to gather up supplies that would otherwise go to waste. The disfavored will tolerate your presence, but you will pay them handsomely for such charity. We will? The disfavored soldier clears her throat with a cough before repeating herself in a more upbeat manner. We will. It sickens me to make exceptions for this vulture, but if you'll supply the disfavored without profit, perhaps this indiscretion is for the best. It's not like our larders are overflowing. A work slave to scrounge provisions would be an asset. Who among us has not intimidated others with his manhood? I believe it's only if you show it to members of the opposite sex that it becomes a problem. If you just show it to another guy, it's, just boys being boys, right? One of the many things that will be clipped and turn me into a helicoptering in the name of Kairos. Yeah, so I was gonna say, I'm actually surprised. I really just wanted you to see the character creation pro, because I know no, but then you'll just delete it like women's suffrage. I single-handedly deleted women's suffrage, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, I actually really just wanted to show you the character creation. I'm assuming that your taste for games is about the same as your streams, so the idea of me just reading a whole bunch of stuff probably is not does not spark joy, but I'm happy you're here. Thank you for interceding on my behalf. I know my life will now depend on my showing the disfavored due gratitude for suffering my presence. If I must grovel a bit to earn my daily grain, so be it. I do like this idea of trade Batman, though. I'm going to steal that. Okay, unspent talent points. I don't know. Okay, so we just get temporary bonuses for whatever. With each level, you can increase one of your character's attributes: might, finesse, quickness, wits, vitality, or resolve. Each of these attributes provides benefits to your character as well as increases one or more skills. Increasing an attribute costs 1 point until the attribute score reaches 19. To raise an attribute from 19 to 20 requires 2 attribute points. God, which do I want? What I'd prefer above all here would be not... I'll confess, it would be less useful to me to see what I'm currently getting and more... Oh, here we... Wait, so it's still the same? Or is that just another... So either this tooltip is wrong, or it goes down, or it's talking about how much more I put... Yeah, it's got... I got no idea. So I'm slightly more inclined towards finesse. Unfortunately, finesse does not work too well with two-handed weapons. I'm curious if... Okay, wits and resolve touch on lore. So spell strength and magic defense, affliction, duration, endurance, will, and magic defense. I guess, if anything, I probably like wits a little bit more. Okay, talents-wise, so we started on the power path. So maybe let's take a look at some of the different abilities that I get out of that. Cleave, focus strike, armor penetration to the thrust ability. Palm strike, perform a powerful palm strike to the target's chest, interrupting them, pushing them back, and silencing them from spell casting. Mighty stance, an aggressive stance that focuses on powerful strikes that penetrate a foe's armor, or focus on rapid strikes to overwhelm opponents. I don't think defense is quite where I want to go with this. Now, leadership, bandolier, party gains 2 additional quick item slots. Nope. Marking effect to the thrust ability. Attacks against the marked targets gain the bonus accuracy, but I don't have thrust. Unless thrust is just something I just have. 1 additional weapon set. Refuse pain. Leadership seems like it should be a lot cooler than it is. Okay, so if I went down magic, adds spell, breached affliction to thrust attacks, also grants a bonus to magic skills for a short time after using thrust. Bonus to the lore skill, or charge strike. I think at this point, let's go for a mighty stance. All right, Kyros's edict must be personally delivered to the Archons. Find them in the disfavored camp. And Verse wants to talk to me.
Need to talk? I suppose I can give you a moment of my time.
Verse crosses her arms and regards you with curiosity.
What do you need?
Are you a spy for the voices of Nerat? Verse regards you with an unreadable expression. Her mismatched eyes look at each of yours in return. I mean, does it even matter? You have to decide for yourself whether or not I'm worth trusting. Is keeping me along with the risk that I'll spill the occasional word about what you ate for breakfast? The Voices of Nerat is the Archon of secrets, not the Archon of honesty or fair dealings. If you don't assume that everyone already reports to him, you're not being careful enough. Tell me something about yourself, milady.
If you insist. I'm a Scarlet Fury. That should raise some flags for you. It means that I'm good at killing, and more importantly, that I enjoy it. What I won't enjoy are the pleasures of funerary rites packed with weeping mourners. Someday I'll fall in battle, and then they'll roll me into a mass grave or heap me atop a shit-stained wagon. One more anonymous, knife-riddled piece of meat. Until then, I plan to take whatever I can from life and have a little fun along the way.
How did you get conscripted? How did I think you have the wrong idea about me. The chorus didn't take me as a sobbing maid. I strode into their camp and enlisted. Someone tossed me a dented blade. I lived through the initiation, spent a week butchering my neighbors, and moved on with my new kin. I didn't waste time with goodbyes. My mother had long since died, and the rest of my family were louses. The girl I used to be, even she knew she was worth more than all of them combined. What's the significance of your feathers? Oh, I don't tell that story to just anyone. You'll have to butter me up before I get into the really intimate details. I have questions about your past. It suits me just fine. I'm not much for comparing family histories if I can avoid it. Tell me about your time with the Scarlet Chorus.
The Scarlet Chorus is mostly for madmen and peasants with rusty daggers, but it's also a little niche of freedom that I never had. Once I survived training and met my Scarlet Fury sisters, I saw a different side of the Howling Mob.
Tell me about your training.
For new recruits shoved to the front lines, training means surviving the first battle. Anything beyond that is for the fighters who show potential, whether as blade dancers or arcane madmen. There's nothing in the world like getting put through the paces as a Scarlet Fury. Every day is a test of your commitment and passion. Failure means death. The first few weeks were the hardest, but also the most rewarding. I earned my name, picked up some quality weapons, and met my sisters.
Tell me about the Scarlet Furies.
The elite fighters of the Scarlet Chorus. Your typical Horde recruit fights with a rusty spoon and a chip on his shoulder, but the Scarlet Furies are, well, different. We focus our madness. We coordinate, we kill, we dance. It's like art. Imagine a sculpture that twisted in weird, beautiful angles, and then gutted you too fast for you to realize what was happening.
Sounds wonderful.
It is, as I remind myself all the time. The most important day of my life was when the voices of Nerat recognized my potential and sent me to Scarlet Fury training.
You earned your name? If you think a simple farmer from the Tiers would name her child Verse, I suggest you visit my old village. Most of them were walking around with surnames like Barrel or Fish. Not the most creative bunch. She smirks and shakes her head. The chorus takes your name away. Whoever you were before, you aren't that person anymore. Then you earn back a name through great deeds, usually murderous ones. That's why you see choirmen walking around with names like Stinkmouse or Face First. There's probably a good reason for it. The voices of Nerat gave me this name. When the Scarlet Chorus runs howling into battle, he doesn't hear war, he hears a symphony. And when I fight with blade or bow, he told me that my music stands out louder than anyone else's and contains too many parts to be easily defined. When you least suspect it, the Archon of Secrets can be downright charming. Tell me about your weapon skills. When I was just a kid, it didn't take me long to realize I was a natural. I could pick up a rusty kitchen knife and skewer a rat from across the room. The Scarlet Chorus gave me opportunities to further educate myself. My sisters were always a bit surprised by how quickly I took to different fighting styles. She frowns for a moment and then shakes off whatever she wanted to say. Back to my questions about the Scarlet Chorus.
What do you need to know?
Before you hesitated when I brought up your fighting styles, why? As if that's any of your business. If I wanted to say something, you would have heard it. Don't assume that I'm holding back. By my office as Fatebinder, you are beholden to deal with me honestly. That's as starchy and literal a point as I've ever heard, but you're not wrong. Also, I like how you handled yourself there, throwing your authority around like it meant something. I mentioned before that I'm good at picking up different weapons and fighting techniques. The truth is, I'm better than good. I could flay a man so cleanly that I'd leave a single strip of skin behind. He wouldn't even need to be tied down. That was one of the first things I discovered about myself after joining the Scarlet Chorus. The voices of Nerat recognized it in me as well, which is why he singled me out for Scarlet Fury training. Have you tried that flaying trick before? Let's just say that when we ran out of canvas for pitching tents, the fifth eye handed me a knife and pointed me to the prison pens. She winks. My sisters were the masters of their fighting forms, but since they died, my style has changed, almost like I can kill as they did. I could pick up a bow, a lance, anything really. I could tear someone to pieces with a weapon that I only watched my sisters use. I don't know what that could mean, and it worries me. Who are your sisters? Who are they would be more appropriate. Three Whispers, Red Geyser, and Seeking Sheath. Best fighters I ever met. There wasn't a foe we couldn't take down together. Our fighting styles complemented perfectly, so we divided up the killing work, like bards in a song. At least we used to. She presents a solemn salute. Tell me about Three Whispers. She was as calm as the surface of a pond, and light on her feet. More than one foe tripped and fell on their own blade due to Whisper's crafty footwork. Verse lets her gaze slip away from you as a fleeting moment of sorrow steals her attention. Tell me about Red Geyser. A one-woman siege breaker. She would launch herself at foes like a battering ram. Not even a disfavored phalanx could have withstood that dumb suicidal wench. Kairos' eyes, but she was something to behold. Verse slams her fist into her palm. Tell me about Seeking Sheath. That girl could pass a spear through 12 rings from the far side of a battlefield. Kairos helped any foes who approached her marching single file. She made a game of spitting as many soldiers as possible on the same javelin. What happened to them? We were scouting around Vendrian's Well during the siege, back when we only suspected the guard of organizing in secret. My sisters and I came up upon a group of them, or Kairos knows, maybe they found us. No one said anything. We drew iron and bronze. That was when everything went wrong. I was supposed to take point and occupy the guard with a dance of blade work, something disorienting, while my sisters picked their marks. I hesitated. I lost my nerve. Instead of rushing the Oathbreakers, I froze with my weapon drawn. My sisters fought on without me, but they were off balance, like whatever I had was catching. They died, I lived. My sisters were relying on me to lead the dance, and I failed them. Your actions were inexcusable for a fighter of your station. You're absolutely right. If I'd witnessed the same in one of my sisters, I might have even killed her for endangering the rest of us. Good thing for me, they didn't get the chance. She chuckles. There's no humor in it. Hesitation is a rot. It's unbecoming of any chorus member, and unheard of in a Scarlet Fury. I would cut it from my body and cauterize the wound if only I knew its source. She grimaces once more and turns inward, contemplating. Any thoughts on the topic, or are we just here to open old wounds? Any idea why you lost your nerve in battle? I wish I had an explanation. For the first time, I lost the dance. The song of murder drew silent. Instead, there was only rigid, organized control. I had more questions about your sisters. Go ahead. I miss those girls, but I'm not so bad off I can't talk about them. Back to my questions about Scarlet
What do you need to know?
Who are the Scarlet Chorus leaders? Well, the voices of Nerat is the spider at the center of the web. He acts like the army belongs to him, and he only lends it to Kairos because it suits his purposes, both of which are true. The rest are all offshoots of the voices, like the Fifth Eye. Once you get down to the rank and file, the Scarlet Chorus organize around a motley bunch of gang bosses who call the shots. What do you want to know? Tell me about the voices of Nerat. He's a madman, but that never stopped me from following his orders. Even in a legion as cutthroat as the Chorus, you know better than to get on the Voice's bad side. People who cross him, or just people he meets, don't tend to survive the experience. If he ever seems disorganized or lost, it's because he's channeling one of the personalities he's devoured over the years. His mannerisms shift over to someone else, someone who's probably long since dead. Better to die than become part of the Voices. Through powers you can't begin to understand, the Voices of Nerat steals the minds and knowledge of his victims. You know this happened often during the campaign against the Tears. What he gains from this ability, beyond his apparent madness, is anyone's guess. You know better than to ask him about it directly. What makes the Voices of Nerat so powerful? He's the Archon of Secrets, and he didn't earn that title lightly. People say that he knows more than every sage in the Tears combined, and that he can think 1,000 steps ahead of the other Archons. It would be putting it lightly to say that he's never alone under that disapproving helmet of his. If you make secrets your business, I guess having people constantly whisper in your ear is a good thing. I usually want people to shut up, but to each their own. You gotta earn the name, Verse Prosciutto Fist. Tell me about the fifth eye. A walking nightmare, that one. I can begin to guess who lives under that armor and speaks with that reedy voice, but I'll tell you what I know. When your world is built on secrets, it pays to have a few extra eyes. The Voices of Nerat has eyes in abundance, some that he keeps close, and others that he sends out in the wilderness. Whoever the fifth eye was before he came into the Archon service, he's now just a half-mad, jabbering speech hole, a bodily function, in other words, an eye. Wait, Nerat's eyes are people? Maybe they used to be people. Whatever they were, they're eyes now. Folks like to whisper that the Voices of Nerat takes his servants and cuts out all the extra parts that they don't need. She makes a quick snipping gesture with her fingers. I once heard that the Voices in the fifth eye in a tent together. The Voices kept screaming, "Redundancies! Redundancies!" every time another gout of blood would spray on the canvas walls. I can't even guess what he was cutting out. How many eyes does the Archon of Secrets have? The number keeps changing, either because it grows or because rumors don't mean shit. 3, 7, 19, some even say all of us are eyes and we don't even know it. She shakes her head in thoughtful disapproval. It's one of those questions that drives you mad if you allow yourself to think about it for too long. Hey, you could be one of Tunon's eyes. Bet you never thought of that. Back to my other questions about the Scarlet Chorus leaders. Go on then. Tell me about the gang bosses. A boss is anyone who can rally enough support to kill the previous boss. They cling to command until someone gets wise and stabs them in the back. Tipcap leads the Filthy Lambs, Lox leads the Rusted Harps, Sharp used to lead the Bone Boys. Couldn't say where he ended up after they broke his legs. Waterwheel orders around the Hairy Hunters, Halls for Shit leads the Lazy Malkins, then Scurvy Queen, Fingerfood, and Wild Gash collectively lead the Ladies of Perpetual Strangulation. I'm forgetting at least a dozen more. I've even led a gang or two in my day. They never survive very long, so no point in getting attached. You led a gang? Don't act so surprised. I can crack a whip better than any of those daisies in the disfavored labor camps. But I was never that interested in the power struggle of those grunts and scabs in the middle. I wanted to stand on top like an apex predator. Here I am. So when I got tired of a gang, I disbanded and let the other bosses fight over the new recruits. That much amused me, at least. Some of my old mates are still alive and hanging around wherever they ended up. Back to my questions about the Scarlet Chorus. Let me ask you about something else.
What do you need to know?
What are your thoughts on the disfavored? A warren of self-entitled children so wound up in delusions of honor that they're likely to hang themselves by their own high standards. I wish they had stayed in the Northern Empire where they belonged. Then we could get some real work done in the tiers. What do you think of their leader, Graven Ash? I've seen enough of that high-minded braggart to know he's all duty, nothing but a charismatic, broad-shouldered scarecrow. He calls himself the Archon of War, though by the way he stalls his forces, waiting for a better strategy to present itself, you'd think he's afraid of battle. You would think that someone more deserving would take Ash's mantle from him, but the disfavored have this cult of personality built around their great general. In their eyes, he can do no wrong. What about Ash's connection to his troops? Graven Ash protects. His soldiers keep harping on those words like they mean something. I don't deny that the disfavored can take a few extra lumps on the battlefield, but that only speaks to their thick-headedness. If anything, it's only true because the soldiers place that much trust in it. I've seen the power of suggestion do stranger things to people. Could that be possible? We're talking about a man who's centuries old and wears glowing armor. You tell me. Who would you see take Ash's place? I would rather let the disfavored sort it out amongst themselves. Graven Ash is this aging figurehead of what should be a constantly changing role. The right soldier needs to grow a pair and kill the old man. Kick his cane out from under him. Remind the Legion what strength looks like. The Voices of Nerat changes. He's a multifaceted gem, and the Scarlet Chorus is a reflection of that beauty. If someone could rise up and strike down the Voices, any of us would follow him in a heartbeat. I suppose you have a better idea of how to handle the disfavored forces? Of course I do. First, I'd stop babying the troops. Pain is a lesson best learned early. I'd conscript from the locals to bolster the front lines, because why waste your elite on the vanguard? Then I'd leave any misplaced ethics back in the Northern Empire. They're not helping Kairos' campaign anyway, so fuck them. Excellent, you'd make them more like the Scarlet Chorus. Would that be so wrong? The Chorus is accountable for itself in ways that the disfavored aren't. Our weak die, and the strong fight to keep their rank. The disfavored promote their waning bloodline, and discipline any soldier with the audacity to show their teeth. Though they never admit it, the disfavored need the Chorus to show them the way. Back to my questions about the disfavored. Do you think the disfavored have a chance to succeed in the tiers? Speaking is one of the exceptions. Most of the tiersmen are pushovers. The people of Stalwart seem capable enough, though I have my doubts. You may call them the disfavored's best challenge. Even if they succeeded, it might be too late to redeem themselves. The Chorus have already impacted the conquest more than the disfavored have, or likely will. What are your thoughts on their battle strategies? They've really got something with that phalanx maneuver, a formation built on holding still and moving forward slowly, and hoping that no one slips in the mud. At best, the disfavored are tied to using the same tactic over and over again. At worst, the enemy knows what to expect out of them. Scarlet Furies are dancers. We hear the music of battle and organize ourselves into works of killing art. Every fight is as hot and passionate as the last, with no room for stale routine. Enjoy your lurk, Prosciuttifist. Let me ask about something else. If we must. What do you think of those who defy Kairos' authority? The tiersmen can either fight or submit to Kairos' peace, and only one of those options captures my interest. I suppose I appreciate when they go down fighting. If they did otherwise, I would need to find another excuse to flay them. They need to understand whether we unify the tiers under a shared banner or at the bottom of a mass grave makes very little difference to you, me, or Kairos. It's an interesting view of the conquest. It's a pragmatic one. Anyway, the Scarlet Chorus caught on to the idea at the beginning of the campaign. If no one objects that we're here to carve a bloody path for gain and amusement, then by all accounts, that is our purpose. Besides, unification is such a vague concept that Kairos allows the disfavored and the Chorus to interpret it as they will. The Overlord is concerned with the results. I'm happy to focus on the details, especially if that means cutting off a farmer's legs while his family watches their land burn. She smiles at a pleasing memory. No shame in taking pleasure in your work. No, there isn't. Fatebinder, I suspect that we're going to make something great together. A line of bodies stretching as far as the old walls. It's going to be beautiful. She looks at you with renewed interest. Did you fight in any notable battles? I spent some time in Azure towards the end of the war. Beastmen ripped my unit apart. We thought they might be working under Cairn's orders, but we never found out for sure. Let's change the subject. You learned a thing or two about fighting in the Scarlet Chorus. Care to duel?
That would be an understatement, and I thought you'd never ask. Since you're obviously at a huge disadvantage, I'll let you pick our weapon of choice.
Let's try dual-wielding knives. Or how about bows? Let's play target practice.
Exotic. Good choice. I'll leave you to guess which one is my dominant hand.
Verse slashes and parries with unrestrained ferocity. At times, it becomes difficult to follow her movements. After taking more than a few cuts, you learn to relax your eyes and better follow the subtle motion of her dance.
You held your own. Call me impressed. Need anything else, or did I tire you out?
How is it that you picked up your fallen sister's weapon skills? That's been on my mind for some time, and I still don't have an explanation that fits. I have a few ideas, but Verse frowns in deep thought. Scarlet Furies share a sort of link. It's how we coordinate our dance in the heat of battle. We don't pass messages or anything, but our emotions and intentions sync up without words. She starts worrying one of her knives. After a moment, she sighs and slaps the blade back into its sheath. Go on. The one thing I always knew was that I felt this connection more keenly than my sisters did. I could pick up on nuances that they missed, and I could feel them from further away. When my sisters died, I felt each of them getting yanked out of my brain like someone pulling snails from a garden, but some of their slime residue was still there. Does that make any sense? Should exploit the skill to its fullest potential. Skill? I'm not sure I'd call it that. There's something parasitic about it. But I take your point. If there's an advantage to this, then I'm experiencing, I'm not above against using it against our foes. No matter how you paint it, some part of my sisters broke off in me when they died, and now I'm left to deal with it. Just another day in the tears, right? Some thoughts about your combat abilities.
Do you now? Call me intrigued. You already know that I memorized the moves of my Scarlet Fury sisters. If it seems like a total mystery to me, I don't know how you could have arrived at any conclusions, but I'm open to ideas.
Your talent reminds me of the voices of Narat.
I hope I didn't hear you say that, Fatebinder, because the implication is more than either of us is prepared to handle. The voices of Narat is a monster. We both know that Taratus has never seen a creature more despicable than him. Never mind that he's kind of my boss.
I'm not comparing you to the voices, only this talent you exhibit.
My little talent that latches onto my friends and bleeds them dry, you mean? Because I never asked for it. I've traveled with the chorus for years. I've seen what the voices can do, and it scares me, all right? The idea that everything I am could be reduced to that.
Hey, Tikri.
If I had that kind of power, if I could become like him, I don't know how I could live with myself. I'd rather drown myself in a camp latrine.
Why such an aversion?
Because the voices isn't... I mean, can you even call him human anymore? Everything I am has led me to this point. I joined the chorus, fought to survive, grew stronger than I ever knew I could be. I never needed to steal anything that made me, me. I don't want to be better by being someone else. The Voices is stronger than anyone and terrifying enough to lead the chorus, but he's also an overgrown parasite. And someday he'll stuff himself so full of voices that he'll burst.
You don't have to become like him, just be selective.
I'm sure he had the same idea when he got started. But you know what they say about power? It's usually wielded by assholes. My sisters died. You should have seen us. We were amazing together. I didn't mean to take away what made them special, but I did it all the same. And let me tell you, it felt terrible. If I lived a century, I might never figure out how to make that happen again. And more importantly, I don't want to.
I'm guessing I'm not going to get a different answer on Are You a Spy, but we do at least have Loyalty 3 now. Alright, so I was, and to be perfectly fair, I think I've been more or less transparent about it. But that doesn't change anything about why I chose to travel with you. If I didn't want to, I'd just leave. What did the Voices want to know? He never told me. He just said to keep an eye on you, but there was an implication that I'd have an opportunity to report in, as if I would have. More likely, he would have stolen my mind and learned everything I knew just to make sure I didn't leave anything out. So if you have any reservations about my discretion, keep that in mind. Just doing your job, no harm. Well, I'm grateful that we don't have to make a big deal about it and waste our time wondering if we can ever trust each other again. Honestly, it's refreshing. So I'm sure there's other parts in the dialogue that we can redo now that we've got higher loyalty with her, but we'll say we'll talk again later. Although it is a little weird that it still has a speak with verse icon here. I wonder if that just is always there, or if that means that there's still something I haven't engaged with.
I got it.
Slow down a moment. I know we're both eager to watch the Archons bicker over tactics like a pair of magpies, but I need to ask you something first. What's that? The Voices of Narat told me that you've come as a mediator. Considering the source, well, I can't help but feel that I'm only hearing half the story. So let's have it out. What's so special about you? I'm actually tallying the expense of the siege. Is that all? I can understand why Tunon would worry himself over resources, but we have the riches of the Northern Empire backing this conquest, not to mention the plunder of the tiers. If you say that's the case, I'll go along with it. Verse frowns to herself, but doesn't press the matter. Am I suspicious? It's just a feeling I got. When the Archons are together, the air gets taut as a bowstring. I can't help but think that no amount of compromise will get them seeing eye to eye. So I invite a mediator from Tunon's court. It doesn't add up. Why do you think the Archons are at odds? I've been with the Scarlet Chorus since the early days of the Conquest, so I can say it's been building for a few years now. There's an energy about those two, like a pair of storms moving to collide. I've heard tell that Graven Ash and the Voices of Nerat shared some bad blood in the Northern Empire, but I don't know any of the particulars. By my authority, the Archons will fall in line. That sounds like exactly the attitude to set this campaign in the right direction. I don't envy you the task of getting them to cooperate, which sounds about as easy as teaching a tornado to heal. At least you sound like you know what you're doing. What else has the Voices of Nerat told you? Only that I could find you in the Edgering ruins. Truthfully, I could have picked you out of a crowd. You're the only one of us who hasn't spent the last few months bathing in the stink of the Mittani River. She laughs, but there's a forced nature to it. Really ought to be meeting with the Archons. The war tent is just past the center of camp. She nods towards the northeast. One last thing. Be careful around these disfavored types. They take their work seriously, and most have suffered too many blows to the head. What do we have here? Step closer and present yourself. The disfavored insignia has been violently defaced. The gate guard holds up a warning hand. Go no further. You approach disfavored ground. State your business. I'm Tunon's Fatebinder. Stand aside. I am expected. Ah, so you're the fire starter. Sevis and his companions, returning from the burning library, tell me some harrowing stories about Kairos' edict of fire. I think myself brave, but I'm happy to have been far away from it all. Must have been a terrifying honor to be the messenger of such righteous force. Go on in. The soldier gestures towards the gate. The Archons are expecting you. You'll find them in the war tent, center of camp. The arrows are fletched with precision and care. Disfavored were dismayed by your barbarous ways and insulted by my barbaric ways. Vendrian guards not too happy with me. Converse was appalled by your orderly, honorable ways. Archons wait you inside, Fatebinder. Gotta loot first. Yesterday you chid me for wishing to wait. Now you suggest an even longer delay. Perhaps the voices in your skull ought to become a consensus if you wish to be taken seriously. Good advice is flexible, changing with the moment. Besides, we're agreeing with you yesterday, today. Yeah, we know you hate going on to battle without overwhelming odds on your side. If you're so terrified of a challenge... Okay, I need to just talk with them.
That's 4 reports of avalanches in the mountains now. The Tearsmen can barely count past 9. They have neither the capacity nor the cause to close off the mountain passes. Either way, that leaves the 2nd and 4th cohort trapped outside the valley.
The Archon of War pounds his staff on the ground to punctuate his words. A large and imposing man to begin with, his profile is made larger still by his hulking suit of armor that hums with mystic energy.
Or it's the work of your perfidious Earthshakers. Only a fool would not suspect a traitorous Archon of poisoning the mind of his students with sedition. We would have killed the Earthshakers Guild for their master's treachery, but I'm sure you have some perfectly valid reason for allowing them to live as your pawns.
The Archon of Secrets passes a scepter between his hands as he speaks, twirling the rod in hypnotic circles. You hear the voices in your head. Well, hello there, Fatebinder. We'll be with you in just a moment. I really do like that touch for sure. Emerald luminescence seeps from the seams of the Archon's ragged red robes. The glow is most noticeable where his neck ought to be. His mask seems to float and spin, never pivoting or bending naturally. One other game that I thought did that well was, I think it's called the Red Strings Club. And in that one, that sort of used, it relied on the fact that you had multiple dialogue options to sort of create a certain state of mind for the characters. So there were dialogue options that I think most people would probably pick, but the fact that there were 2 or 3 other ones sort of communicated a particular state of mind. So you'd pick one, but you'd have 3 options to give you the complete picture. I think that's another nice little, it's meta stuff can get a little sort of wanky. Like it's basically the creator drawing attention to themselves and their cleverness. But something like this that isn't so much drawing attention to the cleverness, but just conveying, basically the secret message from the voices being kind of contained in something of a secret message that only if you're using the tooltips you're going to notice. To me, that's actually it's a little bit like why I like Cultist Simulator, right? The way that you learn the game by playing, much the same way that your character is exposed to sort of a secret world and needs to figure that out. And that sort of stuff I like quite a bit. Fits the character so well that yeah, exactly.
Hey, watch yourself. When these two get going, you don't want to get between them.
Voice whispers fearfully as she beholds the Archons, remain silent.
I always know you've run out of things to say when you resort to mocking my vassals. If we are to speak of treachery, why is it that my scouts see the Scarlet Chorus warriors defecting back to the Vendrian Guard? Your fearsome reputation has gone flaccid, for it seems you cannot control your soldiers, or perhaps you simply choose not to.
My lords, the Fatebinder has arrived. The disfavored commander raises her voice, trying with little success to speak over the Archons. Perhaps we could table this discussion and let our guest speak.
Speaking of strategic failures, who was it that insisted the valley would need only a token garrison? For some strange reason, we can't seem to recall which balding halfwit grossly underestimated the enemy. Thoughts?
The Archon of Secrets twirls his scepter in a twisting loop, his leather-wrapped hands flipping the heavy rod with an effortless flow. You hear the voices in your head. Can you hear us, Fatebinder? Cough if we have your attention. Cough audibly.
And I thought you had left agents within these Tearsmen when they surrendered. Either you failed to see this coming, or you knew and let it happen. Incompetent or in cahoots, either way, this mess has your filthy stink all over it.
The Archon of War lurches forward, resting his weight on his war maul as blue luminescence crackles around his armor.
We look forward to seeing you explain to Tunon why the Archon of War could not close the vice on this trivial little insurgency. When we are crowned the ruler of the Tears, we shall have this place renamed to Ash's Folly in your honor.
Voices of Narat tosses his scepter into the air, catching it as it descends back down. Good, good. Now pay attention. You might miss something.
If I could trust the information I get from you and your conscripted mouth breathers, perhaps I'd order my cohorts around a bit more aggressively. But last time I trusted your all-clear report, my troops failed to come home.
Oh, Ash.
Oh, Ash, old boy. If you're going to have a little sob every time one of your nieces or nephews dies to the Tearsmen, perhaps we should have Siren sing you some calming lullabies to help you cope with your grief.
Siren is the Archon of Song and the youngest Archon sent to conquer the Tears. Young and inexperienced, Siren is sworn to the voices of Narat, who uses her powers of charm and manipulation to swell the ranks of the Scarlet Chorus with volunteers. The Archon flips his scepter 3 times around, humming gleefully. You can hear the voices in your head. Take care that you don't learn too much, Fatebinder. An excess of knowledge, of curiosity even, can earn unwanted attention. Hold your tongue. I will not have you denigrate the honor of our fallen brethren. The commander's hand moves to the hilt of her blade, though the weapon stays sheathed. I'd be doing us all a favor if I cracked open that excuse for a head. They bicker like children, do they not? The Fifth Eye's grating tenor pierces the tension in the tent, and all eyes fall on the Crimson Spear. I meant only to say welcome. Welcome to our guest, the Fatebinder. The armored retainer bows with rushed inelegance, then raises to salute. And not a moment too soon. You've gained favor with Graven Ash and favor with the disfavored. Governor Solon, long have we been honored by your iron. Now we are honored by your presence. I must apologize for my lords. Tempers run high as of late. Diplomat, bow and salute to each Archon.
Ah, the fire starter has arrived. Welcome, welcome. Our agents tell us such lovely stories of what you did at the Vellum Citadel. Have you come bearing another fragment of Kairos' wrath in tow?
My soldiers tell me you helped Commander Drotus on your way through Edring. You honor the court with your selfless cooperation, for that is the sort of camaraderie that Kairos demands of us all.
On the last of his words, the Archon of War glares at the voices of Nerat, furrowing his brow as he utters the words camaraderie. Come bearing an edict of Kairos.
Once again, you bring us support in a time of need. We fondly remember your service to the chorus in the taking of the Bastard City. We knew back then you were destined for great things. But we had not anticipated you would be twice honored with the task of proclamation. So, do not keep us waiting. What is the Overlord's will?
The Overlord's loyal servants must hold Ascension Hall by Kairos' Day of Swords, or all in the valley shall perish. The earth sways with each word you utter, the air thickening with warmth as you pronounce the tersely phrased commandment, every syllable drafted by the hand of Kairos. With the edict proclaimed, your pulse quickens and muscles in your legs, worn from a long trip down the mountains, feel renewed, the tired limbs now nearly buoyant with vigor.
The Overlord means to compel us into action. No doubt the avalanches in the mountains are part of this ultimatum. We must conquer the Oathbreakers or die in failure. There is no room for error, and no other way out of this valley alive. We'll need to advance across the Mitanni. We lose everything if we stand still. And we move to back up Plan Green. The Earthshakers didn't make it over the mountain in time. So we do this the hard way. Over the walls instead of through.
The Archon of War taps a finger against his temple. A low rumble escapes from under his beard.
So you found your backbone at last! Oh, we were worried past humiliations would make you soft, timid. That was a record for you, right? The baker's dozen lost in one sortie. If you had waited for the chorus reinforcements, maybe we'd have eyes and ears on the matter.
The Archon of Secrets passes his scepter from one hand to the next, chuckling softly with each toss. You hear the voices in your head. Watch him squirm. So many tears over replaceable, expendable, useless soldiers. I miss the old Archon of War. You'd never see blood echo in a blubbering mess over a few dead killers. He'd use the knuckle bones of his best disciples for jewelry, and he even made a breastplate out of his dead brother's ribcage, because that's how a real man deals with grief. Call you the Archon of Secrets, but you certainly don't seem to know anything remotely useful.
I second the Fatebinder. Thought you had the memories of one of those Oathbreakers rattling about that bronze gourd of yours. Would Kairos' mighty spy master please enlighten this gathering of allies with some scrap of strategic insight?
The Archon of Secrets turns his head to the side until the face of his mask is turned around and a new facet of the mask presents itself as facing forward. When next the Archon speaks, a trembling voice of a younger man can be heard.
Our river was to be the bulwark, but with the Tidecasters slain, what hope remains? It's so cold in here. Help me, please.
The use of the term Our Rever suggests this is the voice of the late Mitanni Janav, ranking member of the Vendrian Guard. The wealthy House Mitanni owned much of the realm of Apex before the coming of Kairos, and the major river in the valley bears the Mitanni name. The Archon turns his head far to the side until the previous facet of the mask now looks forward.
Our sources tell us the Oathbreakers had some sort of magical trick in store. But this knowledge is tinged with fear, trepidation. If we make a move for the Mitanni, we suspect the Oathbreakers will mount a counterattack that is equal parts valiant and futile.
That voice, who was it?
That was Mitanni Yanev, former noble of Apex and one of the leaders of the Vendrian Guard. Back when they were half-respectable enemies that knew how to lose with dignity. When the Guard first surrendered, Yanev presented himself to us. What he knew, we now know.
But enough talking. There's work to be done. My lord, Beric and his band have been drilled on the Echo Call assault plan. The Crescent Runners should be briefing him as we speak regarding the latest enemy movements along the river. I will dispatch him at once. The Iron Marshal salutes, clapping her gauntlet to her breastplate. Beric, though you know him only by name, Beric is a commander of the Stone Shields and well regarded by the disfavored High Command. And I will ensure the chorus stands ready to march. If the disfavored can take the river, the chorus has the manpower to secure the outer ring of the valley.
Our soldiers clamor for battle, and at last we shall have it. Verse, we command you to continue guarding the Fatebinder. Tunan's Chosen is our honored guest, and must be shown our finest hospitality.
I won't let you down, boss. He'll get through the campaign in one piece, as long as he doesn't do anything too stupid.
The Archon twirls his scepter one last time, then taps the fifth thigh on the shoulder, and the two depart. Suit yourself, Spitebinder. The more you ignore us.
Finally, the fool and his puppet are gone. Perhaps now I can hear myself think. Rarely do I question Kairos' judgment, but I will never understand why the voices of Narot is given such authority. I shudder to think what will become of us all should Tunon favor him in the end. Though the edict threatens the Scarlet Chorus just as it threatens us, I cannot shake the feeling that our allies will work against us. You've shown your worth in war, and your name has been known to the Legion since the very beginning of this long conquest. So I'd ask that you join us this one last time, to help us wrap up this last objective. If you wish to be counted amongst the glorious, speak with the Iron Marshal. She will direct the order of battle until we are ready for the final push into the Citadel.
I'm short a few scouts, short a few soldiers, short a few everything. I'm sure my brethren would be grateful for the assistance of a skilled outsider. I would be honored to help. The Iron Marshal salutes Graven Ash, then turns to leave the tent. I will be at the training grounds readying the soldiers. Find me there when you are ready. She pauses, clearing her throat. And though I am loath to mention it, the chorus can likely use your assistance. They certainly won't secure the outer valley on their own. Fifth Eye will be somewhere in that rat's nest they call a camp due east. Seek him out, if you must. I don't recall if I need... I don't recall if I can or should do both. Oop. Okay, so I also have markers for the quests, which is good. So I'm going to save here. There's no way for me to... Okay, I guess I can't give it special names, but... I'm going to leave it here just because I'm at the 3-hour mark, and it's still a school night. But thank you, everybody, for hanging out. I don't know how people feel about me doing more of this game in the future. I'm certainly interested in doing more, but I also don't know what... I guess the best thing for me is I don't really know what kind of interest there is in seeing more of this game. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so my hope here would be to do... Sorry, might as well play the music, so... Yeah, I think so too. So one thing for me, one, I'd kind of like to see more of the game overall. And then I do actually have some plans in terms of doing some more CRPGs in future. Maybe not sort of mainlining it, but I can see this being something that I actually dedicate some time sort of pursuing in terms of doing this game, and then maybe using it as a launch pad to doing some of the more classic isometric RPGs. So, like, for instance, I haven't played any of the Fallout games for any meaningful amount of time, and I think playing something like this might give me enough sort of motivation. Like, the challenge that I sometimes run into with older games is that they are built on a set of assumptions, and maybe they're figuring out some things that sort of modern conventions have sort of moved past. So again, I don't want to be too harsh on older games, but a good example of this is that while I've learned to like the Total War games, I do find the older ones quite difficult to get into because they don't necessarily have the same UI as the modern ones. And so likewise, there are some CRPGs that are very well-regarded games, but coming to them with a set of modern expectations, even when those are games that maybe established a lot of the conventions of the genre, that can sometimes create some difficulties in terms of appreciating what people brought. So, I mean, this game's almost 10 years old, so... and again, like, just to be clear, I do enjoy some of the older games. So I've loved playing Starflight. I'll be returning to that on stream, and there's a number of different games that I can see myself doing. But what I do tend to find is that there will be some games, like for the Elder Scrolls, I didn't really enjoy Skyrim that much when I first played it, but I actually came to really enjoy the whole Elder Scrolls series. Because I played Elder Scrolls Arena up to and through Oblivion. So I, with that in mind, this is a kind of a chance for me to try and ease myself into, a modern game that's really trying to take up the mantle of some of those classic isometric RPGs, while not sort of fully locking myself to something like a Baldur's Gate or a Fallout until I've sort of become acclimated, let's say. So, anyways, we will cut the music for a little bit, and we will find someone to host. Looks like Kilgore Trout is playing Ultima 9 Ascension, so that seems like I have played Baldur's Gate 3 on stream. I played it before it was released, so the early access period. But yeah, I'm happy enough to leave. I'll focus on Tyranny first, and again, I don't want to turn it into a full. I don't want to become a complete dedicated CRPG streamer, but I'll definitely see Tyranny through to the end, even if I do find some ways to sort of juggle the different games. And I think I have about 3 solid games in mind for future, but I'll leave that aside, and we'll focus instead on getting through what I currently have signed up for. So please enjoy Kilgore's stream. Kilgore is mostly a retro streamer. He does actually tend to play on the original hardware, so when he plays some of the more classic games, he'll do it on like an old Celeron or something like that. But definitely he's somebody who will be able to speak more intelligently about games like Fallout and Baldur's Gate and all of the classics, which I'm sort of getting accustomed to. I will not be back on Wednesday. I've got a local game dev meetup to go to, but I will be back for Friday. We'll probably do Cyberpunk because I know it's been a while since I've done that. And just a reminder to everybody, for the majority of August, I will actually not be in the country, so I will try and do streams, but if I do streams, they'll be more like just chatting and sort of like me doing my touristy stuff. So please keep that in mind for those of you who are considering subscribing to the channel. I want to make sure that people understand that they will be seeing fewer streams.